What's up, everyone? Welcome to another episode of the Long Run Podcast. This is Adam, and I'm joined by some of my favorite people in the entire world, a cast of podcast veterans that you all know and love and are my eternal brothers. Today, we're going to be talking about the latest and greatest of the MCU in Phase 4. It's Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings. I wish Evan were here so he could tell me if I said that correctly. I'm right now making all of my Chinese ancestors ashamed of me. But before we even talk about Shang-Chi, I'm going to introduce some of these amazing people. Of course, you know him, you love him. He's the most famous person on this podcast, Noodle Mage himself, not seen since the Snyder Cut review. It is Ethan. How are you, brother?
I mean, it wasn't that long ago, this time, but
it was pretty long ago, dude. The Snyder Cut came out in March.
You can't keep introducing me like that. It's too much to live
like
up
3
to.
episodes.
Exactly. Ethan, listen.
Oh, wow.
The people are big fans of you. They know who you are. It's just how it is.
I'm glad to be back, Adam. This was
happy
a good movie.
It was good.
Let's get to it.
It was good. And of course, next to him, it is Austin, another veteran of the podcast, not seen since Mortal Kombat, where he detailed his intricate weaving of his friendship with Andrew because of the Mortal Kombat franchise. How are you doing today, man?
I'm good. I'm here now to review Shang Tsung and the Legend of the Ten Souls.
Don't do this. Don't. It's not gonna play well.
Austin, you already know what might come up. There might be some people who get implications. Okay.
See, but they wouldn't if it was just a harmless joke, because the only Shang in my life is usually Shang Tsung. But now I have a new Shang to celebrate. But here you are implying things.
I listen. Does Shang Tsung know about Shang-Chi? Did you have that conversation?
Did you tell him?
Did you have that conversation yet, or what?
My Shang Shag? No. He's very protective.
Let's keep it moving.
Soul is mine, and
okay. But you're good, Austin?
I'm good.
Doing good?
I'm happy to be here. I'm happy to be here for another round of this.
Hell yeah, man. I'm happy that you're back as well. And of course, finally, we have our resident animation specialist who is always on the grind, not seen since Castlevania Season 4. It's Vince. How are you doing today, man?
I'm good. I'm ready for all the controversial hot takes because I got tons of them.
Vince is always the guy, never afraid to be the contrarian. That's why I love having him on the podcast, and there's plenty to talk about when it comes to this movie. So today we're going to be talking about Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings, the latest from the MCU. Believe it or not, the last time we actually reviewed an MCU movie, like actually, and it's online, is Civil War. Like, it's been a long time
ago.
Apparently.
It's been a long. We've done other reviews before, but they always get lost. Like, there's we did Black Panther. We also did Infinity War. But we never posted them. So they're just in the ether.
Guys. It's for subscribers only. Sorry, guys.
Yeah. Subscribe to the Patreon. Not that there actually is one. But having said that, though, because it's been so long, obviously since Civil War and also since the Infinity Saga, how are all of you feeling about the MCU, and especially MCU Phase 4 now that we have Black Widow and now Shang-Chi as our theatrical films?
Oh, geez. So, like, the current, like, how things are going currently?
Yeah. I think everyone can agree that Endgame and Infinity War, like, that was a journey, right? That was we made it.
I mean, if Jake was here, he'd have opinions, but
I'm sure.
I think current day MCU, it's like you said, it's hard to follow up the big finale, but it's been all right. We saw Black Widow, and it was okay, and I think the mystical era of Marvel will be interesting to see.
I'm so lost.
You're so lost. Yeah. Why? What makes you say that, Vince?
I haven't watched Endgame or Infinity War.
Oh. Yeah.
So, I have no idea
confusing.
what is going on in this universe.
Well, listen, that's why we have you. You're the outsider in this.
Yeah.
You're the average viewer. That's
the
right.
movie vacuum for you.
Exactly. And it stand alone.
Yeah, I was about to say that. For what it's worth, I do think you don't need to know too much about the other Marvel movies to enjoy this movie.
Really.
There's not a lot of like connections and all that other stuff.
No.
I'm still optimistic about, or at least I haven't been. Nothing's been tainted yet, but I haven't been convinced of the quality yet.
That's a good way to put it.
Yeah,
nothing's been ruined, but Black Widow, I was a little disappointed in.
Sure.
This was good. This was better. But we'll see.
Yeah, and I think, in fairness, there are only 2 movies in, right? Granted, they have a lot of TV shows now on Disney Plus, like WandaVision, Falcon and the Winter Soldier, Loki, What If.
What if?
Yeah,
What if?
and I don't want to go into every single one of those series, but I definitely think that it's a different change of pace, right? We're in a new era right now. The Infinity Saga is over, and I think we're all experiencing that beginning growing pains a little bit of where is this going to go? Is it actually how are they going to follow up this saga that we
Yeah.
all know and love, that sort of thing? So
It's all the branching storylines now.
yeah, and even with a movie like this, right? I think the last time we had a solo Marvel film that didn't include a character that was introduced in a movie beforehand was Doctor Strange, right? Because Black Panther was first introduced in Civil War. So for the first time, we're having like, hey, this is the character, this is his film,
Oh,
sort of
yeah.
thing, without any sort of, hey, check this guy out
Brand
and
new.
make sure you tune in for the movie after, that sort of thing, you know? So we're going into this movie, right? Shang-Chi. I'm not sure how hype any of you guys were. Were you guys like, oh my god, this is going to be elite. This is going to be the greatest movie of all time, or were you a bit more low key about it?
Low key,
Yeah.
it
Go
would
ahead.
have- I was hoping for just a better than Black Widow experience, but I didn't have any major expectations. I hadn't heard anything either, besides maybe the occasional friend who had seen it. But I didn't have any. I wasn't primed for excellence, but I wasn't primed for terribleness either. So I felt pretty neutral. Pretty
Okay.
neutral.
Yeah. I was much the same. I actually didn't really want to see it, but I hadn't seen you guys in like 2 years because of So I was like, all right, I guess I'll go see it. So
Yeah,
I
no.
was pretty low going in, but I not as low as possible because I liked Black Widow like a little bit, so I thought like, all right,
Right.
it'll be okay. But I was actually pleasantly surprised. It was entertaining. So
Yeah, no, like my whole Twitter timeline like blew up because like a whole bunch of artists and a lot of the artists I follow are Asian American, like are like, oh my god, this is the greatest movie of all time. It's so good, it's so great, like Asian representation. And I was just like, okay, cool. Maybe I'll give this a chance. But like I came in with no expectation because again I have no idea what's going on in the MCU universe. I'm just here for like the
the vibes,
superhero fluff and vibe. Yeah.
the good vibes.
Word. Yeah, it was interesting because, like all of you said, I was trying to keep my expectations low and just like avoid like looking at all the trailers and all the spoilers. But I feel like it's probably a combination of just people being hyped because of the pandemic slowly becoming less and less of a thing. But I feel like everyone was talking about this movie so much online. I was like, oh no, I'm really worried that this is gonna like get onto the hype train.
Yeah.
But I think that at the very least, I was probably closer to where Austin and Ethan were actually about like, hey, like I kind of just want to see the squad, and if it's good, it's good, and if it's not, hey, like at least I got to see them. So
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
right there with you. That being said, though, I was really excited because the director, Destin Daniel Cretton, obviously an Asian American, so I'm glad that they were able to do that. But he also directed one of my favorite movies, which is called Short Term 12, which I'm not sure if any of you have seen.
No.
Nope.
Austin, not Austin. Vince, you've seen it because I saw it with you.
Have I seen it?
Yeah, you just don't remember.
I don't remember this.
We literally watched it at your house, bro. Like where you are
What?
now. Me, you, and Lorraine.
When did we watch it? I don't remember.
It was years ago.
anything from that.
It was years ago. All good. Don't worry about it. But he also directed something called Just Mercy, which stars Michael B. Jordan. So pretty famous director in terms of these indie flicks. And
Yeah.
Short Term 12 is obviously really, really good. So going in, I didn't know anything about Shang-Chi. Did you guys know anything about Shang-Chi? Like, I would say like I'm someone that really knows all the Marvel characters, but like I have a pretty good knowledge. I never heard of this dude. Did you guys know?
No, I only knew about fucking Iron Fist, who's like
Yes,
kind of the
me too.
ripoff, like the shitty one.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
I really didn't know much about him. No.
Mm.
I knew of him only through. As a kid, I had a Marvel encyclopedia that I would carry
Oh.
around, and names come up, and I knew he was a big deal, but I didn't know anything beyond that.
I see.
Oh, that's big brain. I have no idea who the hell this man is.
I mean, like,
Jesus.
listen, I think that's probably the general consensus among even the entire like movie going world, right? It's not like a Spider-Man or like a Wolverine where it's a really household name.
Even Iron Man wasn't a household name back in the day.
Yeah, but I was about to say that's one thing the MCU does very well is take B and C tier list characters and kind of elevate them. And let's be honest, like I'm sure part of this is like an apology for how horrible the Iron Fist TV show was, like on
Yeah.
Netflix. With peace and love to everyone who was involved with the production, like it just was not, it just wasn't it. You know what I'm saying? So I think that was a lot of it as well. And then on top of that too, and a lot of people were hyped to see the Mandarin after. Or at least a version of the Mandarin after Iron Man 3, after being teased for like literally the entirety of the MCU. Everyone's like, yo, when are we going to see this guy? We got to see him. I want to see the 10 rings, that sort of thing. So I think there's a lot of hype going in.
Yeah.
What are you saying, Austin?
I was saying, hello, I'm the Mandarin.
Don't spoil it. We'll get to that.
Well, what you have to realize is that Austin is one of the best impressionists of all time. I'm letting you all know that right now.
I see no lies. So, it's correct.
Right. So the movie follows the story of Shang, or I should say, before we get to know his Chinese name, just Sean. Your boy is in San Francisco. He has a really good friend, and he could be doing a lot. And like even people point that out, but he's totally cool with just being a valet. Going on joyrides with those cars and going karaokeing late at night. He's not like doing the crazy things, but he's living his best life.
Yeah. It's the refusal of the call. He's at that point in the story circle. He doesn't want to do it yet.
Ethan's bringing in Martin Campbell, or no, Joseph Campbell. Excuse me, Joseph Campbell already. The hero's journey. But I don't know. I feel like in the first like 15 or 20 minutes or so, right, when it's just in San Francisco, I actually really like Sean. Like I think I'm gonna say this right now. I think he's almost as likable as like a Peter Parker. Like he is super chill, super likable. And I wouldn't say like he's like as inherently flawed as someone like, remember when you first see Thor or when you first see like Iron or Tony Stark, Iron right? Man, where they're like clearly dicks in some way and have to be taken down a peg. I actually really like Sean a lot. How'd you guys feel?
And there's nothing about him to dislike. Like he's a pretty normal guy.
Yeah.
And I think I think he's built to be pretty likable. So
that's probably true. Yeah, I mean, I was on board with Adam until Ethan pointed that out. I'm like, I guess there really is nothing per se that I dislike.
Yeah,
he's just
his main
everyman.
His main character thing is that his main character thing. Well, his tragic flaw, if there is any, is that he doesn't want to he doesn't want to step up. I guess.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
Like he has these abilities and he doesn't want to do it. Yeah.
Yeah. The arc, right, is about him accepting, like what Ethan was saying, the hero's call, right, and subsequently embracing his identity, right? Because that's the whole conflict of the movie, is that like he's like running away, not necessarily from his destiny, but from who he is.
Yeah, because it's interesting because this is his like first movie, and usually in the first movie, the hero has to like learn who they are, right? Like Spider-Man has to like learn that he's Spider-Man and learn about his powers, But Shang, like he knows from the very beginning, like he's like, I know that I'm awesome, essentially, but he doesn't want to. He doesn't want to get involved. You know what I mean?
Yeah, he's like, listen, man, like I know I could beat a whole bunch of people up, but I'm just trying to sing some karaoke. I just want to do that with my friends.
It was pretty good because they basically skipped over a lot of the starting stuff, so we could just get right to the plot.
Yeah, and I'm sure, especially you, Vince, you probably noticed this. There's a lot of like little nods in the beginning to just being an Asian American. Like took off his shoes before he went into the home, right? Or
like the posters in his room that are like obviously like all the like the great kung fu films like Kung Fu Hustle.
And going karaoke. Me and Vince have done it before. I've done it with all of you guys too.
Yes, I loved it.
Unfortunately.
So good.
Listen, Ethan, that was a good memory, all right? That was a good memory.
A good memory, but it was a disaster.
Ethan, was it a disaster?
It was a disaster of a performance, but it was
the best. Listen, best birthday of all time, 100%. But so Sean goes on this journey, and that's really the entire arc of the film, right? It's more about Sean, but I what I found interesting about this movie too is that almost all of the main characters, his sister, Katie, who's played by Awkwafina, and even his dad, Wenwu, played by Tony Leung, all of them actually go through arcs. I thought that was really interesting. That wasn't just one character. It was like every single character goes through an arc. And it's certainly not something you see a lot in films.
I think it's something Marvel's trying to do more to try and include, like, like the female characters, the other characters,
Right.
Mm-hmm.
More women and not just focus on the hero.
Include the ensemble. Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess like I don't want to have to go through every scene beginning to end sort of thing. So I'm just going to open up the floor and just be like, how'd you all feel about this movie?
The beginning.
Just in general, and
The
we'll
whole
go from there, and we'll go from
General
there.
thoughts.
Just general thoughts.
I had a thought. I wanted to say something about Kate. Kate
Sure.
or Katie?
Katie, played by Awkwafina. Yeah.
I really liked Katie. I felt my own sprinkle of hashtag representation as someone with an advanced degree was stuck doing a much smaller, not smaller, but a job that is very much out of that wheelhouse.
That's right.
I'm in a similar situation for a while, and
Right.
so I felt that hard, and I like how she bounced off of him. Like, he's running away from his identity and his upbringing.
Right.
She's kind of hiding in her own way, but it's a different kind of non-embracing, right? She's like, well,
Right.
I don't want to do. I know I got my giant degree, but I kind of want to just. I'm not ready yet. I want to have a little fun. I want to do my own thing. And Sean is very much in that same situation, but for different reasons. And they vibe together.
Yeah.
And I like that. I liked that whole sequence. I like getting to know the two of them.
Hashtag relatable.
Yeah.
On the subject of Katie as well, I'll be honest, like I was so worried going to this movie because like I have no problem with Awkwafina. It's just that sometimes, it's like with humor with anyone. Like sometimes it hits and sometimes it doesn't. There's definitely been times where I've seen movies where Awkwafina is in. I'm just like, all right, like that could have gotten cut or something like that.
She's pretty popular right now, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
She's on fire. She's in Crazy Rich Asians, Raya, The Farewell. Like she's on fire right now.
She is busy. Like kudos to Aquafina. I don't mind Aquafina as like the character. Like Katie was pretty good.
I agree.
Like the fact that Aquafina has been like just busting out these movies left and right. My only concern is the fact that like Hollywood has got to step it up and stop like shoehorning Aquafina to just play as Aquafina.
Right.
Like what I enjoyed about Farewell was that she was her own character, right? And she could obviously act.
Right.
But like the rest of like Hollywood or like Disney in general, between like Raya and like this movie, it was just like Aquafina playing as Aquafina.
See, I actually disagree. I think she like really like because they could have gone so full Aquafina in terms of like her traditional comedic roles. Like I think her role in this movie is obviously to be there for Sean as like a friend and support system, kind of like a counterbalance. But also she's us, like the audience. She's the audience insert, right? 'Cause she's new to the world. So when she's like, "Wait, what is this?" and then people explain it to her, that's really them explaining to us, the audience, like, "Oh, what's going on? What is this mystical world? What's Talo? All that other stuff." So I thought she was I really like her in this movie, and I'm just gonna say this now. I'm so glad they didn't shoehorn in some sort of romance subplot that they're platonic friends, and they hint at it at the end. Maybe it's something more, but hey, they're just really close. We need to normalize platonic friendships between people of the opposite sex, please. Like it can't always just be like, oh, you're only friends with them because you want to like be their girlfriend or boyfriend. Like please, I'm so happy this movie did that.
Yeah,
it's gonna be a slow burn. Just watch the next Infinity War is when they're gonna make out. I'm calling it out.
Oh yeah, Infinity War.
I believe that.
Yeah,
I believe that.
Maybe. Yeah, I really liked Katie in the movie, so I'm right there with you guys. But Austin, back to you though, because it seemed like you were gonna say something about your general thoughts on the movie itself. How you feeling, man? Go ahead.
The whole thing.
Just general, just like whatever you want to talk about.
Thoughts.
Yeah.
No, I definitely wanted to talk about that beginning. My general thoughts on the movie. It was a step above Black Widow.
Right.
Why that is, I think it has. Well, fuck. Do I even know why that is? The product itself just ended up being something better, which is tricky to do because this property embraces mysticism, and it seems like all of this coming Marvel phase is embracing less
sci-fi,
down to the earth types, less street level stuff, more big idea cosmic mysticism.
Yes,
and that can be tricky. That can be very tricky to do, and but this worked. This worked much more because Black Widow, that's easy. That can be another spy movie. We've had great Marvel spy movies, fantastic some
Winter
of the best
Soldier.
ones.
Yeah,
Winter
Winter Soldier.
Soldier's so good.
Right.
So Black Widow could have been something similar, but it just did not cut the mustard. And maybe I'm a little biased because I wanted what's his name? James Harden. What is his name? What's big red Soviet man that I adore?
Red Guardian.
Red Guardian.
Yeah.
What's the actor's name?
David Harbour. David Harbour.
David Harbour, not James Hardy. Yeah. David Harbour, who I love, and I just felt like he was wasted. So I might be a little biased that they did that, but I don't know. I think this, despite that risk of being more heavily into that mysticism and feeling and needing to bring the audience on that journey and make sure that they're not lost in it.
Right.
It did well. It did very well, and we had good characters and great performances to ground things.
Mm. Yeah, I do think that you touched on something really good there, and that clearly Phase 4 and whatever happens afterward, like, we are not going to the street level with these movies, right? Almost every single movie is dealing with a multiverse of some kind, right? We have Spider-Man No Way Home, which is implied is dealing with a multiverse. Doctor Strange is literally called the Multiverse of Madness. Like clearly we're going big picture here. Loki dealt with that, right, in terms of the TVA and also unlocking the multiverse and implying that Kang the Conqueror is getting in there. So there's a lot of really, really big picture stuff. And I think in a way this kind of adds to that too. And in some ways it also almost frames like Doctor Strange as like the new center of the, I guess, the Marvel universe, right? Before it was Iron Man, but we're seeing that Doctor Strange not only shows up in this movie at the end in the post-credit scene, or excuse me, a Doctor Strange representative in Wong, I should say, and kind of the mystical side of things, but also we see them. It's always a full spoiler review and discussion. I don't even mention it anymore because it's what it always is for us. But and we also see them have a presence even in the Spider-Man No Way Home trailer. And obviously in WandaVision, it's all about Wanda kind of discovering that she is the Scarlet Witch, right? And that she does have access to chaos magic and all this other stuff. So I do think the mysticism is certainly a big part of it. How do you all feel about that new focus on mysticism and big picture ideas with Shang-Chi?
I'm cautiously optimistic, because I'm a little burned on Marvel magic just because in Spider-Man, like famously the magic totem stuff has always been kind of like lampooned for not being as good. Because there's been a couple arcs where they tried to frame him as like more of like an avatar of the spider, and it always felt kind of like, okay, all right. That and like the whole thing with Mephisto or whatever and the deals and stuff, but I think what we usually see in the MCU is they take the concept like Civil War and they actually do it like they get a second pass on it so they can do it better this time.
Yes.
So I'm cautiously optimistic about how they'll handle the whole like mystical sort of vibe that they're going to go for.
Right. How do you feel about it, Vince?
I have no idea what's going on.
Okay.
Like with the mysticism, right? Like I haven't watched like all the other like
Marvel
spinoffs, I guess. Or like Marvel movies and spinoffs like Loki, WandaVision. Like I haven't seen like any of them. I haven't even seen Doctor Strange. I'm now like I feel like I should probably watch Doctor Strange now because everything's centering around that.
Sure.
Like you guys said. And like there are like multiple cameos in Shang-Chi that are just like, hey, there's a whole lot of stuff beyond what like the viewer knows, and like what's beyond like the Marvel universe that's just like expanding constantly. And I'm just like, I'm like, did I miss the Big Bang? That is, Civil War and Endgame, where I'm just like, okay, the blip happened, and then everything's just diverting into multiple paths.
So as a new viewer, you feel kind of overwhelmed by what might be coming?
Overwhelmed, but also just like both overwhelmed and underwhelmed, where I'm just like, okay, can it stand by itself, and can I just enjoy this just as a standard viewer? You know what I mean? Like I enjoy my typical like superhero movies. Like
there's been a lot of them. It's been 10 years. It's been 10 years of these movies.
Yeah, like, more than that now.
How much more can we do?
Yeah, like how much more can they even tie in? Like the fact that it ties in is now like confusing because I'm just used to just like Batman movies just being by itself.
Right.
Superman movies by itself. Blade by itself. Hopefully they make a reboot.
Oh man,
they are. I think they are, right?
my parents are like, those Marvel movies are making a lot of money. I'd love to watch one, but as another one comes out, it just gets harder and harder, and such
It feels like
even bigger task to do that.
Right.
Mhm.
I guess
But
I feel bad.
it's like the blessing and the curse, right? It's a blessing because it's obviously a very, very big achievement, but also it helps retain the fandom. But it just increases the barrier to entry for so many people as more and more movies kind of come out. But it's something that Ethan touched on that I actually want to touch on is that he's absolutely right. The MCU is able to take so many like the best
Yeah.
parts of comics because like keeping it 100, there's so much dumb shit that happens in comics.
Civil War was not that good. Civil
like,
War was not that good in the
Yeah,
comics.
it wasn't, and so many just awful things too. So if you
Yeah.
look into the actual origin of Shang-Chi, the character, like his dad is the Fu Manchu character, and that's like so
Yeah.
deeply rooted in stereotypes and racism. If you look at like the original panels, like he's always like his skin color is like always orange. It's like, oh come on, guys, like. But that was how it was at the time. I remember I was looking at one of the covers and like the tagline was "The fortune cookie says death," and I was like, "Oh God!"
Yeah.
It's kind of badass though. Whoa.
Like,
wow.
Shit.
Yeah, they can take all these because they have so much backlog material. They can take it and they can update it.
Yeah,
and they can take what people like the core of what people liked about it, and like
Right.
bring it to a broader audience.
Yeah, and that's one of the I think the biggest strengths of this character, right? So the core, I don't want to say gimmick, it sounds really bad, but basically what Shang-Chi, his role in the Marvel universe nowadays is like he is bar none the best hand-to-hand fighter in all of like Marvel. Like that is his claim to fame, right? Like he'll beat up Captain America, he'll beat up Black Panther, whatever. Like in pure hand-to-hand combat, Iron Fist 2, like he will beat them, right? That's the claim to fame right now. And he's recently been rebooted so that Fu Manchu is no longer his father.
Yeah, it's a new coat. Yeah,
It's someone different. Obviously trying to make it a little bit different. And I like what they did with his dad in this film as well because it's a combination of one, the Mandarin. And I actually like how they talk about this in the movie. How the Mandarin is also a problematic character. Like, first off, why would you even name a character the Mandarin when it's just like a fruit or like a chicken sort of thing? I love that they mentioned that.
Yeah, they lampshade it.
Yeah, and even in the in the comics too, like there's a bit of a Fu Manchu sort of like esque-ness to the character. So I'm glad that they updated it in a way.
This whole movie was kind of a mea culpa. It felt
Yeah,
like from
yeah.
Marvel, where they're like, "Listen, we know we haven't been perfect."
Yeah.
I have a genuine question.
Go ahead.
Isn't Mandarin also a Chinese dialect?
Yes, correct.
Okay, it's both.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Yep.
Just checking.
Yep. No, you're good. You're good. So I like what Ethan said there, right? Because this is definitely like a look, guys. We know you didn't really like Iron Man 3. We're sorry. We know that we tease it and all hail the king. Okay, here it is.
That good.
I know, like we're sorry.
Yeah.
We know that Black Panther was really good for African Americans and Black people. We know the Asians have been kind of starved. Like, here it is, right? Like, I definitely think that there was certainly like a apology aspect to it, but I do think the movie elevates itself beyond that. And I think one of the biggest things for me, I think Tony Leung plays Wenwu so good in this movie. I think
the
he
villain
is bar none the best part of this movie.
He is quite
Leung
good.
Like one of the best actors out there in general.
Right.
Like personally, I cared more for his character than any of the other characters in Shang-Chi because I'm just like, okay, what's Shang-Chi's like issue? I'm like, he's just a deprived child of family, and I'm just like, okay, but like Tony Leung lost his love and then wanted revenge. This man is a whole mafia in itself, and he has the 10 rings. Don't even get me started on like the beginning where this man has an army against an army. He just beats up the army by himself. He's like, hold on, I got this.
He killed people for like thousands of years.
I'm like, oh, we're going in?
Yeah.
Like I was so invested into Tony Leung's character more than Shang-Chi because it's just like he has like this sort of history that they told in the beginning that was just like really interesting that like caught my eye.
True.
That was just like this man's pretty much like how was he immortal from like the beginning, and
Right.
then what makes him so special, and then like they kind of like I guess like overshadow that with Shang-Chi, where I'm just like, what makes Shang-Chi special other than his martial arts, right? But like it then devolves into, oh, his martial arts carries him throughout the whole movie, which makes him like super overpowered. I'm like, now what's gonna happen with him with the 10 rings? Which I'm kind of sad. Where I'm like, I wish we had more with him with the 10 rings.
Right.
Because looking at Tony Leung's character, the 10 rings seems like the sickest power
It's
that
so
I've
cool.
ever seen in the whole like Marvel universe.
It looked
was
really
so
cool in the
cool.
movie.
Yeah,
they did.
they were
Did a lot of
very
like
creative.
clever things with it. Yeah.
Absolutely. But continue what you were saying, Vince. Go ahead.
But yeah, Tony Leung like carried that. I don't know. For me, like Tony Leung carried mad hard because I'm just like his acting, in my opinion, like kind of just stole the movie away because of just like he knows how to act out like that kind of pain of losing his wife,
Well, he
right?
has like a certain gravitas to him.
Yes.
Definitely.
Yeah.
That a lot of the younger
Totally.
actors don't have.
Mhm.
And you guys were saying that you were happy because this movie is kind of introducing him, like Tony Leung, the actor, to a Western audience.
Right.
Because
right.
he's quite famous in China, right? Like
Yeah, so this is his
quite well
Hollywood
known.
debut. Like
Yeah.
Ethan said, Tony Leung, for those of you who don't know, one of Hong Kong's one of the most celebrated actors of all time in
Yeah.
China. This dude like is straight up like thought of alongside if we think about people like Jack Nicholson, we think about Robert De Niro, Al Pacino, some of the Daniel Day-Lewis, some of the greatest actors, in Hollywood history, right? Tony Leung that's what they consider him, right? Like he is right up there. He's been in so many classics, whether it be In the Mood for Love, Infernal Affairs, which is what The Departed by Martin Scorsese is a remake of, 2046. He's been in a couple John Woo movies too. Like this dude has been around. He played Ip Man in The Grand Master. Like he's been around, right?
Yes, sir.
This guy is acclaimed, right? And I think something that I think Ethan said. It almost sucks because I'm sure Simu Liu was so happy he's able to, be Shang-Chi and be able to bring this character to life. But it doesn't matter in certain scenes because Tony steals every single scene that he's in.
Yeah.
Every single time he's in a scene, he's like acting circles around these people. And it's not to say that like anyone else is a bad actor. It's just that Tony's that good. Like
He's just
he's just so smooth, man.
What was wild was that this movie has two titans. It was Tony Leung and Michelle Yeoh. Every time both of them were on screen, it just stole Shang-Chi. I was just like, I just want to watch a movie with both of them on screen. Honestly, their dynamic is like immaculate. Where I'm just like, I just want to see them two. I'm like, I'm sorry to see movie. Like, kudos to man, he's really good. The whole movie is great. It. But like Adam said, like Tony Leung, even Michelle Yeoh, like acting circles around them, especially when it comes to like choreography and like in the fight scenes that they're doing. I was just like blown away. Or I'm just like, there's some things about Simu Liu, like you could tell like he has done some martial arts in the past, but like I don't think that he's done like and this is just like ignorance where I haven't researched Simu Liu's repertoire yet with choreography.
Sure.
But like for like I think it was Master Z with Michelle Yeoh, and like the Grand Master for Tony Leung is like they've trained under like extensively for months.
Right.
Like with Tony Leung with Wing Chun for the Grand Master, like months for that, where you prepared for that. The same thing with Michelle Yeoh, where she knows Bagua and like you know those forms, and I was just like with Simu Liu, like some things were stiff. That was like my biggest issue with some of the choreography. Like some things were stiff, but yeah, no. Going back to the subject, like you could tell like the huge difference in their performances whenever they came on screen.
Right. Ethan and Austin, you two both weren't as familiar with Tony Leung. And I'm getting a sense that me and Vince might be a little biased because we're so excited to see him on screen. So how'd you both feel about Tony Leung? Like, did you get that same vibe, or was it a little bit different since you're kind of outsiders looking in?
You go first, though.
I think there was certainly a quiet charisma, a massive charisma that comes from. There was a quiet confidence to him throughout the movie that was very apparent. I don't think the hype certainly wasn't with me because I had never seen him before. I think I had heard how famous he was, but I didn't know he was De Niro, type stuff. But now that I looking back, I feel like it shows for sure. I don't think I noticed any when it came to choreography. I don't think I noticed anything, but that just might be me not being attuned to such things.
Sure.
I recognized who was the other famous
Michelle Yeoh,
actress? Michelle Yeoh.
yeah, she's
Yeah,
from
the one-
She
Crouching
was in
Tiger, Hidden
Crouching Tiger.
Dragon.
Exactly. I recognized her immediately when I saw her, and I'm like, hey, look who it is. I assume that she's been working since then. I assume she hasn't stopped.
She is.
You know,
She is.
just
Correct.
yeah. Okay. I think I did a fantastic job. He was a great villain. He wasn't Marvel can sometimes be wasteful with their villains, and
Absolutely.
he was. I don't think this was a waste by any means. Whether he stole the show from me though is another matter. I'm not sure. I think he was very necessary for this movie to work. And if he didn't work, then everything would fall apart.
Right.
But I don't know if I was glued to him every time he came on the same way that you two were.
That's fair. I mean, like, what's nice about Cui Long's character is like, you can sympathize him. I feel like that's the first time I've ever sympathized with a character aside from Killmonger. Like, I don't think anywhere in the MCU universe I was just like, okay, they're kind of just chaotic evil. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I imagine they tried to channel that too, because I mean, I bet they recognized the success of Killmonger because he was a fucking fantastic villain.
Yeah,
so good.
Right.
Like, and that was just before Thanos, right? On my timeline. Yeah. So that was the best one, and it blew everything. I think everything else out of the water by far because it was so. I know. So that was probably on their mind, and I guess they did a good job. It's hard when you have because. Again, it's that same angle of into that more mystical side of things.
Right.
He is being influenced by something. And it's very easy for your casual viewer to be like, well, obviously it's fake. It's not her ghosts.
Right.
Like, this man is being pulled in by something, so he's being dumb.
Right.
You know?
Right.
And you have to run that risk with this. And I think they did good.
What did you think, Ethan?
I think they framed it well because I think it's not just that he's like being influenced by this. Like, I think because the way they frame it is that he wants his wife back. You know what I mean? So I think even though like the reason that he's doing all this is ultimately because he's being influenced by the demon. I think like his motivation is still there for the casual viewer. I think to be like, oh, okay, he just wants to bring his wife back no matter what. Like, I get it, whatever.
No matter what it is. What if? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I thought like Austin said, like he came off very experienced in the movie. Like a lot of the older actors in the movie, he can't like compared to Simu, like he felt very experienced and like very comfortable on screen. And yeah, like he definitely like because the movie just starts with his backstory, right?
Yeah,
like,
that's the opening.
It starts with him and the 10 rings, and you're like, whoa, okay, like. And yeah, we basically see that he's like lived for like almost like thousands of years. Just basically being like this like super kung fu dude, but like it was really like it was a really great way to start the movie, I think, because like it puts all of the necessary information and the atmosphere like right at the start. So you're like, oh, okay, this is what the 10 rings are. We don't have to like dance around the issue. Like these are an artifact from like China and such. But yeah, I thought I will say that he kind of did steal I think he would have stolen the movie more for me if like because we mentioned this after the movie, like he speaks a lot of English in this movie.
He does. I was like, really? And it's really good English. Like, I know a lot of people are afraid of that. Like, he speaks good English. Yeah.
You know, his English is fine, but there is like there were moments where it felt like you could tell that like because like obviously if it's him and his son speaking together, why would they be speaking in English? You know what I mean? Which sometimes took you out.
Yeah.
But I think overall, I think he was pretty good. I do think that like kind of like I think maybe Vince mentioned earlier, like I kind of felt sad that like towards the end he kind of just like vanishes because he kind of gets like destroyed by the actual villain of the movie.
Yeah, the Dweller in Darkness.
Really? There's a lot of issues with the end of the movie that I have.
Like, the third act is like going to be a huge portion of this review, I think. So we'll get there. Later, yeah. We'll get there. Yeah, but keep going.
That was my only real like kind of gripe is that like he kind of like vanished at the end, and I was like, oh, all right, okay.
Yeah.
But otherwise, I thought he was great, and I think he really did help the movie a lot.
Yeah. I think we're all in agreement. Obviously, we talked a lot about how good Tony is and how relatable the character of Wen Wu is. Like, you feel for him, man. And one thing that the scene that's really sticks out to me in terms of like, wow, like he just has that command of the screen is when his like vengeance scene after his wife dies and Sean's like mom dies. Like he just literally just like walks in, just
Oh
walks into like
yeah.
looks like a gambling like parlor or something like that, and just like not so casual, just like, all right, going to beat the shit out of every single one of you.
I was actually like, I feel like that might have been like one of the most violent like depictions on screen in the MCU. Like
Yeah,
it was up there.
Yeah.
Like,
it was.
because like he ends the scene by like essentially like pummeling a guy's head into paste. Like
Yeah,
off camera,
Yeah,
obviously.
yeah.
in front of his son, and it's like he
Yeah,
makes
his
sure the
son
son
watch it.
looks. He makes
Yeah.
sure that Sean is watching.
Yeah, and he just basically he uses the ring to just like boom, like destroys his head, and like they
Right.
walk away, and it's like wow, okay.
Right.
Yeah. That was awesome.
I was gonna say,
I
Austin, you look like
I
you got
was
some
hoping
stuff
for
to
like
say.
the raid kind of beat up.
Oh,
Yeah.
Like he goes to the gambling house and then just goes through floor
Yeah.
of like people. I'm just like, I would be totally here for it if they actually went through that direction.
What are you gonna say, Austin? Go ahead.
It was so visceral, and you're right, where that scene was as good as it was because of his acting, and it was the sheer. I felt the revenge, and I felt the motivation, and it felt so justified in my seat as I watch it from their perspective. You know, like it was all done so well. And Ethan's right, how it was violent, and because that's what he wanted, and that's how he doles out things. That's how he lived his whole life before he met this love. You know, that was his whole being, and he never tolerated anything back in the day until he got soft, quote unquote, and it was a return to form for him.
Yeah, I definitely kind of find it interesting that like, and like I agree with you guys that like he's almost like kind of relatable, and you start to feel for him. But like it's funny because the movie introduces him as like, yeah, he killed people for thousands of years. Like he was essentially
the first minute he literally murders a whole army.
Yeah, like he was not a nice guy for like a very long time.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's like, oh yeah, he finally met like one girl, and he's like, all right, I guess I'll be chill. But even after the second that she died, he's like, all right, fuck it, back to it.
It's not worth it, clearly.
Yeah, I think he's a good villain because he's not like, he's sympathetic, but he's not like too concerned with being likable. I think.
Right.
Because sometimes the villains, they try to make them too likable, and it starts to feel like it kind of removes the teeth from them.
Yes.
So I think having him be like more like he is a very violent guy, and like in any court of law he would be in jail. But but you do feel for him. You do feel for him that he really does value family after being immortal for so long.
Yeah, you feel for him, and Ethan's right. In any Judeo-Christian religion, he's definitely going to hell. There's no question about it.
He's not a good guy.
Yeah, but you know, the thing that really sticks out to me about the entire thing is that he does go through an arc, kind of like what Ethan was saying, right? Because when he loses his wife, the whole point of the movie, and I love this when Sean says this to him during their one-on-one fight in in Ta Lo in the third act, where he's just like, you were so concerned about the lost love that that happened that you didn't notice the love that was right in front of you, right, and his children, right? And I think that's really the strength of the movie. And to me, actually, what I wanted to see more of in the movie is about that whole family dynamic, because really the story is about a broken family coming together.
That's true.
And sure, it's about Sean discovering his own identity, going back to his roots. But each of the arcs is almost like about that, like coming back together as a family and those family dynamics, which in some ways, and I'm sure Vince can relate, being an Asian American, like family, especially in Asia, is like hard, man. It's very complicated. You're supposed to be really close, but inherently, the more close you get, the more susceptible it is to like really deeply personal conflicts.
Yeah.
But yeah, did you get that vibe too, Vince, or am I just projecting?
No, I mean like that was like a huge thing. Like I think, you know, one of the biggest Asian American struggles in general is the sense of family. Because like it touches upon like, it's weird, right? So like Shang-Chi is from China, but his moral standings as an individual is in the Asian American aspect.
Right.
And you can see that too with Katie, right? So their dynamic kind of like bounces off of each other, like as you can see from like the beginning of the movie where like Shang-Chi visits Katie's family, and Grandma goes, "When are you gonna marry my daughter?" And Shang-Chi is like, "You're so funny. It's cool, Grandma. We're just friends." And it's just like, it's one of those things where you're just like, okay, yeah, no, we've all, like, if you're Asian American, like, we've all been there. We're just like, okay, thanks, Mom, Dad. Like, it's cool. We're just friends, and it's a thing of just a dynamic to like, Katie's family, like grandma's living together, mom's they're living together with like the mom, the brother, but they're all old enough to like, you know, be like out on their own, but they just decide to just stay together because like, it's cheaper. Katie uses uses the reason of she got loans, gotta pay back college and whatnot, and like she's trying to just enjoy life. And that's one of the biggest things too, is just like, you know, the Asian mom, your Asian mom is always gonna be like, when are you gonna focus on your future and like have a family? And Katie is like, I just want to have fun. It's like one of the biggest relatable things as you can get with one of those reasons. But like, yeah, so it's just like going back to like Tony Leung's character, like the dynamic between Shang-Chi, his sister, and the dad. That's like one of the, I would say that's almost like one of the hardest and like weirdest dynamic, because Shang-Chi ran away from home.
Right.
He didn't even, he tells us that he didn't even go through with the murder of like the boss and the gang.
Oh no, he says that he did. Remember that was the reveal when he was talking to Katie, where he was like, remember how I said that, like, no, I actually did kill him.
Right. Okay, yeah. And then he just ran away, and I'm just like, you're just gonna leave your sister like that? Bro, you're just gonna leave your sister with that dad who's just like, who lost his wife, now just lost his son after Shang-Chi accepted to murder the gang leader. And you're just like, yeah, no wonder Tony Leung's fucked up and this whole dynamic's fucked. Shang-Chi fucked it up.
Well, okay, hold on. In Sean's defense, and his sister's defense.
In Sean's defense, he was like 15.
Yeah, he was abused, bro. As soon as his mom died, like, that was an abusive upbringing.
Bro, he wanted revenge too.
I mean, yeah, but he was manipulated by his dude. When you go to a parlor and you see your dad murder like an entire group of people, you're a kid. It's gonna fuck you up.
When your dad trains you to be a killer, like for like 6 years. Like, it's not a good upbringing.
Yeah, he was abused, and so was his sister. But that's what makes it complicated. And that actually, one thing I think this movie does well is that it actually a lot of its themes tie into the greater MCU. Right? We've seen abusive family relationships explored in the MCU before, whether it be Gamora and Nebula with Thanos, right? And like about how like it's super complicated. Like obviously there was abuse going on, and also Peter Quill with Yondu and his own biological father.
Black Widow had a weird family too. It's weird families all the way down.
It's all weird. It's everywhere, bro. Heroes have weird families. The only person who has like a good moral upstanding is Spider-Man.
Basically,
can't have a good relationship.
I mean, as Mark points out, Peter Parker has everything going for him. Nothing's wrong, and everything's peachy. Unlike how it's supposed to be.
We'll get to it.
We'll get there. But so it ties into that, and I think it's good that it expands on it. But another thing that really the MCU has been heavily investing into post Endgame is the theme of grief and how one deals with grief, right? Spider-Man Far From Home was all about Peter and him trying to figure out his own life now that Tony wasn't there as his father figure in his life, right? And moving on from that, getting over that, right? WandaVision is all about the grief of Wanda losing Vision, like literally the love of her life, what gave her a purpose and what gave her a sense of joy, right? That's all about that too. Loki is in a lot of ways about the loss of identity, right? Like when you think of yourself as this, but suddenly that gets shattered, what do? Falcon and the Winter Soldier is all about how the Falcon, Sam Wilson, as well as Winter Soldier and Bucky, how they deal with Steve's death and his own legacy, and how both of them carry on his legacy. And we're seeing that even more so here in Shang-Chi. Black Widow kind of it touches on it a little bit in the end credit scene, because obviously she dies, Natasha dies in Endgame, and her little sister, whose name I'm forgetting, that's played by Florence Pugh, is dealing with that grief as well by visiting the grave. So
Black Widow dies?
Oh, whoops!
Spoilers.
Sorry, Vince.
Spoilers.
You gotta go watch those movies.
Wondering why you hadn't seen her in many movies.
Yeah. She does pass away. I won't go into but so I do think it's a theme that they're really heavily touching on. Do you think that they touched on that theme well, like with tact, or do you think it was not as explored? How do you feel like they dealt with it in this movie?
Yeah,
that's
that's a good question, Adam.
Yeah,
I think for the most part, with I feel like it was going well up until the third act.
Okay.
Yeah, it's going up to the third act.
I feel like I'm going to say that a lot about this movie, but keep going.
I mean, basically, but
yeah.
I mean, the whole movie is basically it's basically about how grief can make you abusive to the ones that are still there in a way, like
Right.
the damage that it does. Because obviously, like Wenwu, he after losing his wife, like he reacts to the grief in a very like negative way, right? He's not dealing with it healthily. He decides instead of like like coming together with the remaining family, he decides to like seek revenge instead, which is never a good idea. So,
right. What do you think, Austin?
Austin's pondering.
I'm trying to connect themes and stuff across movies.
Right.
And I was wondering, okay, in the case of Shang-Chi, we have a father who the father is the main source of the grief is definitely through the father figure, and once that trauma happened, the father had a very strict idea for what he wanted to turn his family into after that.
Right.
And he forced his son and daughter to do some terrible things, and with his son, it was enough to make him leave the family altogether. And I was thinking about Black Widow, who was abandoned. Not abandoned. No, she was. What was the story?
She was also raised to be a killer.
She was also raised to be a killer, but I think that was the plan all along.
Well, she was stolen. She was stolen from her biological mother.
That's right.
Yeah, to be a killer, to be a part of the Black Widow program.
And her surrogate family kind of like left her to it, sort of thing.
Yeah,
that's right. So her father figure was also a killer. So we have some sins of the father action going on.
Right.
I think it was handled fine. I mean, this was grief gone bad. The whole villain was grief gone bad.
Right.
So I suppose it was an exploration of that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it definitely was explored very well. And to our point, I believe it was Ethan or Austin who said this, right? Like, it's really about Wenwu in that way, and to the point where like he's the one that anchors that whole theme. And one thing I really like about the character itself too is that kind of like Ethan saying, like, even though we're in the intro, we're basically told, yeah, he did genocide for like an entire like millennium, like probably not a good dude. But then we see him doing DDR with his kids, and we're like, he's not that bad. Like in act 2, like when they go to his compound and they're like having dinner, and we're like, like he seems like a pretty good guy. Like,
he seemed like such a good dad.
He kills people.
His family.
He kills people.
And like even though like the dinner scene, right, where like he's like kind of picking on Aquafina, where he was like, "What's your Chinese name? You don't know your Chinese name? What's wrong with you?" Like,
I like that scene a lot.
I like that scene a lot too. But it goes back to the whole thing. Like, you know what? Maybe he does. He's not that bad. Like, he's just grieving about his wife. Don't worry. Like, he's not that bad of a guy. So I think that was played off really well. But we've been talking a lot about Wenwu, but in reality, the catalyst of the entire movie is the death of his wife, who's Ying Li, played by Fala Chen. We're introduced to her in literally the intro scene as part of Wenwu's kind of like arc, whatever you want to call it, little mini sequence in the beginning. How'd y'all feel about the beginning fight where they meet and kind of like? I know, Vince, I know you have thoughts, but I want to hear what the others have to say first.
It caught me off guard because at first it's like, okay, they're fighting. It's like, wait, are they fucking? Is that what's happening? Because it definitely like it shifts very quickly, and you're like, whoa, what's going on here? Because she's the guardian of the village, basically.
Right. Hello, correct.
And she's the first person that can stand up to him, and he's like very intrigued by that. He's like, whoa, what's going on?
Right.
So I thought they had a good chemistry.
Yeah.
I thought it was pretty good. But what were your guys' thoughts?
What'd you think, Austin?
I think I do remember specifically kind of chuckling in the theater as I realized the transition was a little sudden.
It felt sudden, right? It felt sudden.
I get what they're going for, it's a fight, and all of a sudden it becomes a dance.
Yeah,
I see the attempt. I just don't think it worked
because
that well.
It was that one shot, right, where they lock eyes. They lock eyes as they go past each other. Where you're like, okay, I get it. You have to show me that. I get it.
I think it handled it a bit more gracefully.
Mhm.
I don't know. Maybe the idea is okay, but the execution did not land for me. I laughed.
To be fair, that whole scene is like very like wire fooey and like
Yes,
it's
very
old
wire
school.
food.
So I feel like
Yeah,
it's like sort of intentionally hammy, maybe.
right.
You know what I mean?
They had a goal,
Yeah,
and maybe that could very well be. It would probably maybe
yeah,
it's a trope that I'm not aware of.
Right.
yeah.
Perhaps.
Falling in love while fighting.
So I did
Yeah.
laugh.
And,
If you
but
I
it
ask
was
laughed
funny.
too.
I-
Don't worry. I laughed too. And to be clear, like the choreography is good. Like the
was a good
production
fight.
design is beautiful. The cinematography is beautiful. It was just just like that one shot when they look at the eyes. I was just like, oh, come on, guys.
Oh my god.
I do like how they put the wire foo in there. All right, Vince, say your piece, because I was sitting next to Vince in the theater. My boy was cracking
exploding.
up during this scene.
Bro, that shit took me out, dude. I was just like, this man came here to conquer a village.
Yeah.
Like he's just here to conquer booty, dude. Like,
Oh my god!
like as soon as she didn't even touch him, dude. She like pushed she blew in his face and it's like,
Wait, she blew him? She blew him? What?
oh shit.
Get the wrong idea, everyone. Everyone listening, please don't get the wrong idea.
This is a PG movie.
Like
It
is so like you got like it is so funny like going through that because like you could tell like the obnoxious like set design. Right. Just like I did not realize Tao Lo was gonna look like this.
Right.
So it's just like, where's the village? Right? And it's weird too because we never revisit that set piece again. It was just specifically for that choreo, and I was just like, what is going on? Like they used the specific Chinese like camera lens for wire fu like they use for like Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, where it's like this wide lens, but like also just like kind of like I don't know, spherical kind of wide lens, where it's like, you can see everything around them as they're just flying through the set pieces, and like I was having a ball because I was just like, what is going on? Especially with the kung fu, where like I kind of wish they'd like they use a little bit more like Hung Guard like in it against like Hard Bagua, but it's just like I get it, more mysticism, the elements, you know, heaven and earth and whatnot.
Right.
You know? So like I respected that. Everything she like played in was fantastic. Honestly, like when she was on too, like she kind of just stole the scene every time she was in, especially with her dynamic with like the kids. You know, like being an important figure for the whole family dynamic and like why it's centered around her. You know, I thought like whenever like she came on, like it was like, okay, yes, justified, and like it felt like the movie was moving forward.
Yeah, I really want to talk about that too. I think Ying Li, the character, and obviously the actress that plays her, they don't have a lot of screen time. Like they're probably less than 10 minutes in the movie.
I was gonna say,
but like of the time they're in the movie, I think she does such an amazing job, and like you could tell why she's the one who made Genocidal Maniac over here calm down a little bit and settle down. Like I get it now. Like just seeing the way the dynamic not only between her and Wenwu, but also with her children. Like when she was teaching them, I don't know if it was Tai Chi or just generic like martial arts, and then obviously she get somehow the compound has no security and gets raided by like an entire gang. They climbed the entire fucking mountain, and we're just like, all right, we're here to kill Wenwu. He's not home.
They survived the maze that literally eats you.
We're gonna climb the mountain. All right, we're here to kill Wenwu. He's not home. All right, well we came all the way here. We got to kill someone. It was like, there's no security. Like what? Weren't you a genocidal maniac for a millennia? There was no cameras, no bodyguards, but whatever. I think she did an amazing job. And also one thing I noticed too, like I remember when she was like having that face-to-face conversation with Sean as a child, I couldn't help but notice how clear her skin was. I was like, girl, tell me your skincare routine. It is flawless. My God.
Yeah.
Bro, even in her death, skincare routine on point. There was no bruising. There was no like messy hair. There was just a pool of blood, and then just a graceful, just just lying down. I'm just like, beautiful. immaculate.
It was definitely a very pretty death.
Very pretty.
She was literally beat to death.
She literally is beaten to death by all these gang members who like come in literally
like
axe gang style from Kung Fu Hustle.
Yeah.
I really thought she was just gonna get shot, like when like she started
Yeah,
confronting
you'd
them,
think so,
but
but
that's what I thought was gonna happen. But
they didn't have the gun on hand. I don't know.
yeah, Austin, Ethan, how'd you feel about Ying Li?
I was laughing while Vince was talking because I realized that he was like, why? Where's the rest of the village? Why do we have this set piece? And it reminded me specifically. I don't know if Adam. I know you'll probably remember, but
Sure.
Do you remember the like the HQ in Power Rangers Wild Force? It was like that mystic. It was exactly, and even his little fountain and everything.
It's like
literally
perfect.
Power Rangers. It was the Wild Force HQ. That's where the village was.
I see.
I was just talking about, yeah.
I think she did a fantastic job for the little screen time that she had. That motherly, matronly force was totally conveyed, and that the kindness was totally conveyed.
Right.
She did great. I also scattered thought, but I made a connection to our larger ensemble. Yelena, which is Black Widow's sister,
Right.
was left behind by Natasha, just like Sean's sister was left behind by the bad guys.
Right.
And that I think is I know Ethan's like, whoa, wow, but I know I maybe because I guess this is our new normal, our new ensemble.
Right.
Maybe there'll be parallels there. I guess it's interesting to look at the MCU as one big, not like a big movie, like a big novel.
Yeah.
And you can pick apart the themes like that. I never did this before this podcast, but
right.
It's interesting how grief has shown up so many times.
I think that's a very forgiving take of it, because some people I think would say that that's proof of the Marvel like McDonald's, like they're just churning these out.
Formula.
They're going over it again and again. It's like, it's okay, the sister, the mom's gone, but yeah, the same old.
I guess that's true. I would have to see if something similar was done in our first phase, like where we had prevalent themes like universally.
Right.
But I'm not sure.
Well, I think the first phase one is all like the hero's journey, because it's mostly just solo films.
Okay.
But
I guess that's how it's different.
But we don't have to talk about that. That's going to entire different podcast. It's okay.
Yeah.
But go ahead. Continue.
Also, I mean, Vince, I heard you mention the Bagua and Hungar, which flashed me back to Avatar, where I learned about those different styles, because I watched all the special features on my complete series DVD and the different approaches to kung fu, and I'm like, oh. And then I realized she was doing all the Bagua stuff, like a lot of circular motions. She even blew air at him, just like Aang would.
Yeah.
So I that was a thing I did not appreciate until now. So
I want to be clear: it was literal blue air. It's not a euphemism. Please don't look into that and think this is a different kind of movie.
She blew him, man.
Oh my god!
She blew him away.
Oh my god!
Away.
He became pregnant.
All right.
Great.
But is there anything you want to mention, Ethan, about Ying Li before we continue?
Not too much. I mean, I did think that like I wish we could have seen more of her, but I get like the movie has to do a lot and it has to keep moving. And I guess in some ways having the mom like be kind of sparse kind of reinforces like the how much they miss her. You know, like the void, because it's because it is interesting for a good portion of the movie we don't know what happened to her.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Like for very long, it's like basically not said, and you're just sort of like left to be like, what happened? Like what's going on? Like because in after the initial like fairy tale story, basically like we see her talking to Shang-Chi when he's like very young, and then it jump cuts and he's in San Francisco and there's just no mention of her for like a very long time, and you're like,
yeah.
So I thought that was an interesting way to handle it, to like just like have her just be gone. But yeah, I thought she obviously did a very good job in the scenes that she was in. But
yeah, absolutely. And we've talked a lot about the characters, but in talking about that first scene, and not only its choreography but its cinematography, I definitely want to touch on that. One, the cinematographer here is Bill Pope. He's known for doing the Matrix trilogy, Spider-Man 2 and 3, Jungle Book. He's also worked with Edgar Wright on things like Scott Pilgrim and Baby Driver. So I think, first off, he did an amazing job. There are some shots, and like I'll be honest, the cinematography is not always the MCU's best Like they sometimes it doesn't always look good, whether it be the coloring, whether it be just the set pieces and whatnot. But I think they did such an amazing job in this movie. And like the one that really stands out to me is when they're in Macau, and Sean fights the ninja dude who we actually never know who that person is. It's just like one of the more notable henchmen of Wen Wu, right? Yeah, but the choreography is great, obviously, but they're going to hand in hand, and then in the background you see all the neon lights from the sign of the building across the street, shot incredibly well. Got a lot of vibes of Skyfall and whatnot. So big shout out to that cinematographer. I think he did an amazing job. But more than anything, and I think this is what everyone is talking about really in this movie, besides Tony Leung, the action, the choreography in this movie is so well done. So I wanted to. What did you all feel that way too, or am I just too much of a buff and notice those things a little too much?
Vince, help me out if you agree.
mean,
I don't know if I like the cinematography.
I didn't mind the cinematography. It was the handling of like some certain props that are just like iffy with me, but like
there is a couple props like they're little.
I have a lot to say about like the props that they've used.
We'll talk about that later.
But
you know,
but
the weapons
overall,
that they use. Yeah.
Like the basic like choreography that was used, like amazing. To me, the highlight of the film was the bus scene.
The bus scene.
The bus scene was like the best. But like the best fight scene out of like the whole thing, because like everything was used right. Like the guy who had the sword for an arm like used it really well and efficiently. He's never used that sword ever again in the whole film, which is really unfortunate.
And unsung hero, that guy.
It's interesting that you say that, because it's also the movie with sort of the lowest stakes, right? Because every fight after that is like bigger and bigger, but that's like a very street level fight. But it resonated the most with us, it seems like.
Yeah,
exactly. To me, like the best fights are usually the ones that are like the most grounded, because like you can do everything surrounding it, right? So like for example, like the fight scene at the Fight Club, where Katie and Shang-Chi get caught by their dad for the first time,
right?
Or second time, sorry.
You're talking about like the scaffolding fight on the side.
The scaffolding fight was fantastic. There's
cool.
a lot of homages to Rush Hour 3, where Katie's just yelling Shang's name, and I'm like, I literally was in the theater like, Lee!
Chris Tucker impression over here.
Yeah.
Like that was so funny to me. Where I was just like, okay, I get it. Like I wish there was so much more to it, but I'm like, Katie can't do much yet. So I was just like, all right, yeah, no, that was great. The fight scene with again the masked guy into getting caught was fantastic, with the lighting, the billboard, and like that taking over, and you could finally see like Shang-Chi's full potential, where he's like forced into the corner and like getting his finally getting into that instinct of just like, all right, I have to use like what I've been taught in the past, which he was running away from, right? So like that was fantastic. The whole choreography was shot fantastically. My only issue with it is just the close-ups are like kind of jarring, especially with the close-ups on the face, which is really oddly intimate.
Sure.
In like the weirdest ways. For example, like I'll talk about like Act 3, where it's just like kind of like a weird homage to like Act 1, where it's just like Tony Leung and the mom's like face. It was just like they had that close up, but it was kind of related towards the relationship, right?
Right.
To me, it was really oddly unnecessary between Shang-Chi's dad. I'm like, please don't do this. I was like, they look like they're about to kiss, and I'm just like, this is really weird right now. Where I'm just like, if this is just like closing the distance between son and father. I'm like, there are other ways to shoot this shot, but like having the weird, like wire fu close up of like everyone's like face, like mid combat, close to each other. I'm like, that's kind of weird. So yeah, that's pretty much all I have to say about the choreo. Like it wasn't, to me, as an average viewer, I know like for the MCU, like this is probably like
this is hands down the best choreo.
The best MCU, choreo in like the MCU, right?
Right.
To me, like as a general fan, I'm like, it could be pushed a little bit more, but that's because like I'm used to and I like kung fu films. Right. And like all like pretty much most majority of kung fu films are just like wide shot one takes, where it's just like here there's a little bit of Hollywood into it, where it's just like there's some cuts to it, and like there's also some like weird cuts to it too, where it's just like I don't know if it's like Simu Liu or his stunt double, where it's just like again like just his kind of fight style is like a little bit too stiff for me. Where it's just like some of the even during the cuts where it's just like he followed through with a punch, where it's just like, that's a little bit unbelievable. Like it didn't really sell me that much with like the hits.
Sure.
But for the rest of it, yeah, like it was fine. I think like I give it like 2 thumbs up for like the choreo, I guess.
Okay. Okay.
I'm whelmed. I'm not overwhelmed or underwhelmed. I'm just whelmed.
Well,
Whelmed.
go ahead, Austin. What were you gonna say?
Was it really that good?
The choreo? I think the choreo was amazing in this movie.
I thought it was good, but I mean, I don't know.
I'm saying this compared to the rest of the MCU.
Yeah, I guess a lot of times it's non-existent in the MCU.
Yeah,
but I mean, I don't think I was ever wowed.
Like I'm not saying this is the Raid. Like the Raid is on a completely different level. Same thing with like John Wick. But I'm saying compared to like we haven't seen choreography this good since like Winter Soldier. Like
that's what I'm thinking. Yeah. Like Winter Soldier, I remember me noticing it and me being in love with it.
Right.
And I wasn't ever really in love. I thought there were some really great set pieces during the fighting, but the fighting itself never wowed me.
Yeah, it was kind of also like in the middle with like Black Panther. Black Panther between like him versus like Killmonger was just like it was decent at most, right?
Okay.
Like they used all their resources, but I was like it was okay. It was like in the middle for me.
Yeah. Black Panther's best fight scenes are when they're in the waterfall, not in the third act.
Oh
yeah. Oh, totally.
Yeah, but what do you think, man? How'd you feel about it?
Of what, the choreography?
Choreography, like the action scenes in general in this movie.
I thought they were pretty good. I mean, I think as far as the MCU goes, I think they were on the upper half of the scale, definitely.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I thought that the because thinking about it, if I think about the fight scenes that stand out to me, there were a couple. Like the bus fight, I thought was really good.
Yeah, bus fight I think is incredible. I can't imagine the amount of storyboarding that went into something like that. Like such a complicated sequence.
I saw like behind the scenes where like a guy actually filmed like on scene like what would happen. Those cars, they weren't like CGI. Those are real cars. They're actually getting run over through that whole hill, and I was just like, Jesus, I cannot imagine taking a retake of this shot.
Yeah.
This is probably going to be like one of the most expensive shots in the movie right now.
Right. My eyes were closed.
Yeah. Also, somehow during this runaway train, bus in San Francisco, no one dies, even though they're running over like all these cars.
Yo, shout out to Katie for bus drifting, dude.
Yeah, she definitely watched Fast and Furious before this, bro.
Anyway, driving.
Anyway, sorry, Ethan, continue.
It is funny that they established her as like a super duper valet, just so
that
that scene, basically. But also the fight between like the dad and the mom, Wenwu and Ying.
In the beginning,
I thought that was a very like it was very pretty to watch. I thought it was like very like it was another high mark. And I thought the third act like it was messy. It was it was definitely messy and all over the place. But I did think that like parts of the fight versus Shang-Chi and Wenwu were pretty good.
Yes, I agree.
Parts, like not the whole thing, but I thought like the initial clashes were pretty good. I think.
Yeah, I agree. So for those of you who don't know and the people listening, from what I understand, they actually brought on people for all the choreography and stunts. They actually brought on a lot of veterans from the Jackie Chan stunt team. Of course, Jackie Chan stunt team known for actually doing the stunts, right? Like no crazy wire work or anything like that. They actually go all out, and that's why Jackie Chan's almost died like 4 times. So they brought that on, and I think you could really tell. And Vince, maybe you noticed this too. I felt like almost every single action scene was like a mini homage to a type of action scene you see in Hong Kong cinema, right? So the wire fu scene was stuff like Crouching Tiger and Hero, if you ever seen those movies before. Very pretty, very graceful, lots of wire fu. Then the bus scene was a lot more kind of gritty hand-to-hand combat, but like with people like, oh, sorry, like I'm sorry.
No, that was straight up Jackie Chan as fuck. Like right there was
the girl with the laptop. Like
this girl with the laptop, bro.
Oh my god! If I ever seen such a useless a useless scene is that scene where I'm just like,
How mean.
please don't do this.
Why'd
Please
you
don't,
do
please don't
her
get
like
the
that?
astute Asian girl being like, please, that's my whole life. Like, don't destroy this. Like, to me, it was not only was it like weirdly shoehorned. Like, this is the only part that I don't like about it. It was just like was that scene with like the girl on her laptop, where I was just like,
I thought that was fine, but keep going.
I didn't like it because I was just like, this is such a weird beat to put into the fight scene, because I was just like, okay, I was like, I get Katie's side, right? Later
Right.
on into the fight, like Shang-Chi thinks like he could block a heated laser sword with a laptop, and I'm like, she's like, literally the Asian girl's like begging to like not destroy her life's work, because probably her degree thesis is in there.
Right.
And she just grabs it out of her hand and be like, I'm blocking. And I'm like, why? He literally chopped the bus in half. There's literally no point to destroy her life's work. And I'm like, I guess you could have literally just saved her. I was like, there's this also odd romantic tension between them. I'm like, this is weird too.
I didn't get the romantic tension
Romantic
part, but
tension?
I get what
Oh,
you're
the
saying.
I got some tension part, of the stranger. I was just like, this is
I
weird.
think that was between you and her, Vince. I don't know if that was between Sean and them. That might be
She
why
was
you're
cute.
upset.
I'm glad that the live streamer guy didn't ruin the scene for anyone.
My boy was definitely like, world star. It's going on, world star.
God.
I thought it was funny, but I knew that was a very delicate line to travel.
Yeah.
No, I thought all the gags in it were pretty fine.
Yeah, I thought it was
just,
funny too. Yeah.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
I think it's just like the Marvel like beats like
Yeah.
they have to put a joke like every so often they want a joke in there.
And I thought the jokes were good. Like I liked how he was just like, actually, I used to take some martial arts in middle school, so I'm gonna try to break down this fight. It's like, man,
break down this fight.
I was like, who is this guy? It was good. But getting back to what I was saying, right? So the bus scene is very much like a Jackie Chan, like, I don't want any trouble. No, bad day, sort of thing. And then same thing with the scaffolding fight too, because it's all about using the environment, like what Vince was saying before. It's kind of an homage to Rush Hour. And then later on, we get to the MCU style of fights where it's just, there's an army against an army. There's a battle in the sky.
Yeah, the army shows up. Yeah,
there's a ticking time bomb. Like it definitely turns into that. But I did like how they had all those little homages, and it was almost like a short intro to Hong Kong and Chinese cinema in a way. And then, like I said before, very, very well done. The best choreography probably in MCU history, and certainly the best that we've seen since the Winter Soldier. And I think for that alone, I think the movie is worth seeing just to see the action that kind of happens. And I'm so excited to see what happens when Shang-Chi actually interacts with other MCU heroes. And like, I want to see the fight between him and Spider-Man where they actually kind of go at it, or even with someone like Winter Soldier and Falcon, just to see like that dynamic. But it was really good, man. I really think the action scenes in this movie are probably one of the biggest reasons to watch it, especially in comparison to other Marvel films.
I also do want to say, like, shout out to Menger Zhang, who's Shang-Chi's sister.
Yes.
Like, that fight scene in the ring, I was just like,
oh,
yo, that's spicy, dude. I was just like, I've never seen her before. I'm pretty sure she's new to Hollywood, right?
I've definitely seen her.
No, this is her first ever film role.
Never mind.
But I'm so glad you brought that up, because I thought she was amazing.
Yeah, as an actress, I was just like, I want to see her more like Hollywood kung fu films. I'm like, I think she could sell it as like her own thing. I was just like amazed.
Yeah, she was so good in this movie. I think she did an amazing job, the actress. And also, I really like her character arc in the film as well. And I almost wish, in a way, that there was more about that, right, between her and Sean. And maybe they're going to touch on that in like a future movie. But like, there's a real conflict there. She was just like, you left me. I wanted you. I asked you to come back. I made you promise to come back, and then you left me. And now I only heard from you, like, what was it, like 7 years later, 8 years later? And now you're just like, oh, we're supposed to be all of one big happy family again? Like, I think there's a lot of meat to that kind of conflict in that story. And there's a part of me that almost wishes there was a bit more of that and them exploring that and figuring out that dynamic.
Part of me hopes that, like, she even becomes, like, a villain,
It could be.
Or like an antagonist towards Shang-Chi.
Right.
She eventually, like, at the end of the movie, like, she takes over, like, the whole 10 rings.
In the post credit scene, we see her in the 10 ring HQ, and she's the new leader. Yeah, she did kind of get relegated a little bit, which is kind of sad because it's like Marvel tends to be like Marvel's trying to be a lot more girl power, but they haven't
Right.
really like followed through quite yet. Like they have them set up, but it's not like they haven't quite done
Yeah,
like a big
it's almost like
we
baby steps. Yeah,
like we have Captain Marvel obviously, and we have
yeah.
like
Black Widow.
there was some in Black Widow and also in Black Panther,
Yeah.
but we haven't really like gotten like a really important character because Captain Marvel's kind of like around, which is not
Right.
really like in it yet. She's like
Sure.
she kind of just shows up to like clean up afterwards, but it's like yeah, like I don't know, but yeah, I thought her character was very good, and I thought like, the fight scenes where her and Shang-Chi were working together to fight like the fucking Dark Souls boss in in the final one was pretty neat. Yeah.
I really like her weapon too, much in the same way that we talk about how cool it is that of the 10 rings. I like that she used like the ball and chain with like the knife at the end, scorpion style sort of thing. Getting a lot of vibes of Master of the Flying Guillotine and stuff like that. I think it was really, really cool to see on screen. And it goes to show what Ethan was saying as well in terms of like the MCU has definitely gone out of its way to show how a lot of the women like are just as good at fighting, if not better. Like it's a running joke in Ant-Man that the Wasp is actually like a way better hero than Ant-Man sort of thing, and actually much better at getting the job done. So it's definitely cool to see, but I agree that there's definitely, I think there's a lot more to that character, and I hope that they actually use her more and explore more, maybe like whether it be a Disney Plus series or maybe making her a future antagonist. I think there's so much room for growth there, so much potential. What are you going to say, Austin, now that you've recovered?
Something that I forgot about during that scene where that whole scene in her little fight club.
Yeah,
we got a return of a very old MCU villain, the Abomination.
Right.
For some reason,
yeah, he's here, and that's a Hulk villain.
Yeah,
and I guess he's just fighting the fight.
He's fighting Wong.
He's fighting Wong.
He's making money, but Wong and him are friends too. This is something they do often, it seems.
Yeah.
So I don't remember the Edward Norton Hulk movie well enough to truly know if it makes sense for the character.
It definitely got forgotten, I think.
But it's interesting now he's back and he's running around with things, and he's kind of an okay dude now.
Yeah. It's a big universe, or a small universe maybe. And
I like big Hulk villains. I wonder. I mean, I don't remember who Abomination was. I know the general guy is a real dick. I imagine Tim Roth as the Abomination was also a real asshole about things.
Yep.
But maybe he's turned over a new leaf. Maybe he got humbled.
It could be, and I think that it's clear that in this movie they're setting up Wong for much more of a prominent role in the MCU. Of what that role will be, I'm not sure, but clearly, like he does have a place, not just like Doctor Strange's sidekick sort of thing.
Yeah. Wong was great. He stole a whole bunch of the show with Doctor
God,
Strange.
Bro, I love Wong. I love Wong in this movie. I'm just saying it right now, and I talked about this with Vince. In that post-credit scene, I didn't know how much I need to see them all go karaokeing and sing Hotel California. I also just want to point out, Wong was 100% in a different dimension, bro. He was gone. He was not there.
Wong was different. He had probably too much soju, dude.
It was great, though. Yeah, I really liked him in the scene, but also that post-credit scene. And like we were saying before, I hope they use a lot more of a Zhiling. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry if I said that wrong, but I hope that they use her more in future films. So we've gone through a lot of the scenes in this movie, and I think we can't avoid it any longer. We need to talk about Act 3.
Okay.
Act 3, to me, Act 3 is when they actually get to Ta Lo, mystical village sort of thing. Also, I just want to point out, so this is something that Vince said, like, how they have to go through the maze to get there with the car. I love you, Marvel,
my
but
God.
the obnoxious product placement, like, you already know, only a BMW could have done this. Like, come on, guys.
BMW could get through this.
Listen, you need a Subaru for that, not a fucking... Anyway.
Fucking BMW. It's the same thing, too, where it's like, I've never seen a movie with more like prominent like product placement than Shang-Chi. I was almost like sell out the movie because I was just like, I remember when they were first getting into the 10 Rings like headquarters up the mountain. There's just this huge pan of not the mountains but the Bose logo on their headsets, but that they're not even communicating through. It's just the bonus logo, and then they cut into the dojo's HQ, and I'm just like, wow, amazing.
So we get to Act 3, right? And this is where we get the exposition dump. Michelle Yeoh tells the whole backstory about, like, the Dweller in Darkness and plus the Protector and yada yada. Then we also hear more about, like, Katie and how now she's going to become an archer, and Sean has to learn how to accept his mom's side. But then we actually get to the battle itself, where it turns into Wenwu's army versus the Ta Lo villagers, and then we bring in the Dweller in Darkness, aka the Dark Souls boss, and all of his, like, mini spawns or whatever they are. And they suck people's souls, and then there's a dragon in the lake apparently,
A lot
and it
happens.
turns into a kaiju.
Yeah,
There was a lot. So
lot.
I'm just gonna throw it out there. I think this movie is so good up until the third act, and I think it really falls apart in the third act.
Like falls apart.
Not
Does it ruin it?
not like Wonder Woman falls apart. I
Okay.
think it does kind of, it loses a lot of its steam in the third act.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Why do you think that is? Because I think you and Vince, like, are more critical of the third act.
I think I'm just so tired of, like, we don't always need to have a huge battle in the sky. We don't always need a spectacle.
But Adam, at least it wasn't a giant beam. All right.
Oh,
it wasn't
my
a giant
God.
sky beam. Okay. We're past that. We're past
You're right.
that.
I'm glad that we're past that at least. But I wish that we didn't have to have the giant kaiju fight. I wish it was more of, like, this personal battle between Sean and Wenwu and that sort of thing. I would have preferred to see that.
More of an actual, like, martial arts movie kind of.
Yeah,
phenomenon.
like for
I
me,
see.
what I often find, especially in most recently watching the MCU, I always find myself being like, actually, guys, like, I don't really need more action or more, like, spectacle. Like,
That's
I kind of
true.
just want more character work
Yeah,
and people
that's true.
talking and, like, them progressing and that sort of thing. And I felt like that was a missed opportunity, even though they do sprinkle it in. Like,
Mhm.
one part that I really like, I mentioned before, was how Sean told his dad, like, we were there with you, like, to love you, but you ignored us. I thought that was really good to sprinkle in. I really like the part where they purposefully show that Wenwu goes to pay respects to his wife in the shrine before going into battle, sort of thing, at Ta Lo. I thought that was really good too. Nice character work. And also kind of what Ethan was saying too, like, even though the way Wenwu dies is so sudden, at the very least they do give him a good shot of, like, of almost like it's this quick progression between, like, oh shit, I'm dying, then he notices his son, and then, like, it's like satisfaction into, like, pride, knowing that the rings are going to be inherited by his son, sort of thing, and, like, realizing how much he loves him and all that other stuff. But, like, that gets lost in, like, the giant kaiju battle. Like Sean falls into the water, and it's like, oh, good, dude, just happens to be a dragon here, and it's like, what? And then
They mentioned it.
yeah, and then they punch the
mentioned
giant scale wall, and then the Dark Souls boss comes out, and it's like, what? And then it just turns into.
I think it's because you're that type of viewer, Adam. I think you're
Yeah.
more of a movie buff.
Yes,
And
I agree.
and I
100%. Yeah,
I do
agree.
I do sympathize with you that, like, the quiet moments are
Yeah.
they tend to stick with you more than
Right.
the giant CG. But I think
Right.
it's to be fair, it's the giant CG that fills seats.
Yes,
I think,
you're
and that they
absolutely
need,
right.
ultimately.
Absolutely.
So,
I'm sure I'm in the minority. Like,
Yeah.
you're on the money on that.
Yeah, I don't think the problem. I don't think it's a problem that we had our big sky fight. I don't think that inherently is an issue, and I don't think that takes away from the movie. What I think things went wrong is we spent the whole movie with Tony and those characters and that as our villain and that kind of framework. We then drop that for the big CGI fight between a kaiju that we don't know.
Right.
It's one thing to have the one, because that's our big demon thing.
Right.
Sure.
But then we have a throwaway line of introducing the dragon.
The
dragon. And that's
exposition
the
is
problem.
quick. Yeah.
What should have been, I'm thinking about this now, I think a much better way to handle this
Right.
would have been having the demonic thing take the shape of their mother,
Right.
and have it be a much more personal showdown between the family, the father who refuses to even attempt to hurt her,
Sure.
or maybe he is convinced now that he was wrong, and they come together for more martial artsy, still special effectsy.
Right.
Maybe there's a big kaiju thing going on in the background, and then they come together in that way, and it'd be so much more personal, and Tony gets to realize the flaws. That would have been so much better.
Yeah, because I
But we
think
got introduced to dragons so late in the thing, and then it became a huge CGI thing.
There is definitely a giant exposition dump. Like, literally,
Yeah.
Michelle's like, yes, let me go to this wall of the story where I explain to you everything that happened.
The wall.
And like I get the point of it, sure, but it's definitely a lot. Austin's 100%.
It did, yeah. It did feel like I don't know if it was an executive thing, but they felt like they needed like a bigger finale rather than just him versus the dad. You know what I mean? They needed something big.
Yeah.
And that will need to be addressed in future iterations of these kind of movies, because it's going to be a lot of that stuff going forward with these properties. So if we don't keep the human element, we have to make sure that we're ready for it. At some point in the movie, this kind of thing is addressed, it's explored, and then we can have a much cooler CGI finale. I noticed the parallels, like it reminded me a lot of the Black Panther finale. We even had a giant CGI creature, but this time the rhino is not an insult to CGI everywhere. The food dogs are actually really cool. Yeah. The temple dogs, yes. I actually love to see them.
I like them a lot as well.
It was really cool, but that was handled better in some ways. I don't think there's anything wrong necessarily with that Marvel third act thing that you didn't live, like the big sky fight. That in itself is not flawed. It's just some of the execution here could have been done better.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And shout outs to Sword Hand Guy, who the unsung hero.
Razor Fist is his name.
Razor Fist?
Yes.
Razor Fist, thank you. Shout outs to Razor Fist, as he read the writing on the wall, and he was like, I'm going to stop fighting. And then he had quickly adapted with the special material that he needed, and loved it.
So fun fact, the guy who plays Razor Fist plays Ivan Drago's son in Creed 2.
That's
him.
Okay.
Yeah. Anyway, Vince, I know you have a lot of thoughts on the third act, so you let it all out, bro. Let it all out.
It's so dumb, dude. Like the whole third act is just it's just nothing but fun. But like I get Ethan's point where it's just like, like the big kaiju fights are what gets people on the seats. But like, was it necessary? I don't really know from a standpoint, because it didn't really move Shang-Chi's storyline as forward. As forward, right? Like, sure, his dad's soul gets sucked up finally, he could find that inner peace, but like for the most part the whole dragon didn't really affect Shang-Chi. I was hoping it had something to do with the 10 rings, but it really didn't, right? It's just like the dragon was just there as just like a subplot to Ta Lo.
Mm-hmm.
This mystical place guarded by the dragon, which is like, it's cool and all, but it didn't really have any substance for the whole movie as an overarching thing, right? It's just like you get bits and pieces of it, right? With the dragon and like the people who sent the dragon postcard to Sean in like San Fran,
sure,
right? I was like, sure, there's some symbolism, and it's just like 10 rings and the dragon there too, and it's like the guardian of Ta Lo, which is like an homage to like their mother, but it's just like, we didn't really know what was going on in Ta Lo, right? And it's just like, we think that these people are gods too. Or just like, if their mom has like cool superpowers, maybe like Shang-Chi would inherit her power since they're back in the village, right?
Right.
But like, that really didn't play anything. They just showed up in the village. This guy's still human, which is cool kung fu moves. And it's just like, the power up isn't within the 10 rings. And I'm like, that's kind of disappointing, as I assumed from like an outside standpoint from the MCU was like, this man is technically a demigod, right? You would think like he would be a demigod amongst like these people who are considered gods in the village, that are just like, that have nothing to do with the outside society, And so it's just like, I felt that like, it wasn't until like Shang-Chi was about to die with the Deus Ex Machina, where he's just like in the water, right, and awakens like a little bit of power. Which is, I have my own discussion too, where it's just like, that was a weird shot that was the weirdest shot in the whole movie for me, because I was just like, what? I don't really understand what's going on with him in the water, and then like, it was just a really odd camera shot to choose. It was just like, it's really below shot, and you could see like Simu's double chin. And I was just like, come on guys, come on.
Right.
Also, choose a better camera angle, please. But the whole third act too, where it's just like, from start to beginning, like, it did not sequentially make sense to me, right? Like, his dad invades with just this man, again, ruled the whole continent of Asia and technically rules the fucking world, and only has a sprinkle of guys.
Well,
in
hold on.
Talo.
Actually, I disagree because it doesn't make any sense how he got there. Because we saw how much trouble they had in just one car going through the maze. My boy comes in with like his battalion. It's like, wait a second, how'd you all get through like the forest that eats you? What?
No, they explained that.
Well,
explain that.
Well,
Yeah,
they
they
explained
explained
that
that.
It's like one
that there's
day
a
they can
path.
get in.
They explained that there's a path, but I was under the assumption that it was still the exact same thing.
Mm-mm.
Oh, okay.
I think it might be. I'm not sure.
Morris knew the way. He knew the way to get in without the special day of the special time.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, I see. Okay. Then that's my mistake.
Mhm.
Okay, continue.
The headless pillow knew what was going
They got
on.
in early. They got in
The
early.
Shout out
faceless
to
pillow.
Morris.
Shout out to
Morris.
Morris. Sorry.
Morris.
Keep going, Vince. Go ahead.
Yeah. So it's just like they all show up, and like again, this man should have like a continental army, right? They have a Ukrainian guy. I don't even think there was any Asians in his whole arsenal. They're all just buff white dudes. Like even in the bus scene, there was just white dudes. So I'm just like, okay, so there's no Chinese backup, there's no Asian backup fighters or any kung fu. It's just buff white dudes.
To be fair, it's like I think you have to. Like this is like one of those things where it's like, oh, plot hole. But it's to be fair, it's like I think Wenwu, he technically gave up the 10 rings when he married. He sort of gave up the 10 rings,
Right.
and so I think he dissolved his armies and all that stuff. And I think that's why, because if you think about it, basically from when Shang was like 6 to now was the time period he had to build his forces again. So I think in that time period, he didn't really like have time to like become world conqueror again, especially in like an Avengers world. I don't think he was able to do that.
Yeah,
but
that's a good point.
Side comment: how many organizations are there in the MCU that are secretly operating things behind the scenes? We have the 10
rings. I don't think
rings.
it's secret anymore, dude.
The fucking stupid Black Widow.
But it's like, how many are there? Like, there can't
everywhere.
be this many. But sorry, keep going, Vince.
It's almost like every country has their own little secret. Like, the Russians have their special red room with all these the power to undo everything. But then the 10 Rings have been doing this for thousands of years.
And it's been going on for decades. It's like, what? Like,
there's always something behind something behind something behind something.
Yeah, it's always a mess that I could never really wrap my head around, which is like probably the most inconsistent. It's like, we're the secret organization. We're the secret of the secret organization. My name's Nick Fury, and I'm part of a secret organization that's beyond Agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. And I'm like, okay, cool.
Yeah.
I have no idea what's going on anymore.
It's kind of like a power creep in a way.
Yeah. But anyway, Vince, continue on about the. Oh, sorry, Ethan. Go ahead.
Well, I was gonna to respond to what Vince was saying a little bit. I think, because I think I understand where he's coming from. But I think because I think Shang-Chi does have his arc like during that final act, because but the problem is like it gets kind of like
convoluted.
Well, it gets overshadowed. It gets overshadowed, I think, because ultimately what happens is that he essentially beats his dad with his mom's like style and forms.
Right.
And so I think, which is basically to say that he's accepting like his heritage essentially. Because the whole movie, he's basically been like, I don't really want to be Shang-Chi. Like that's his whole arc. But I think at the very end, he decides like, okay, yes, I am. Like this is like I am half from Tao Long, I have from Wenwu. Like I have the rings. I can do all these like crazy things now.
Right.
But I think it's definitely not something that comes like. Because like he beats his dad, but like also like he doesn't really beat his dad because the demon does it ultimately. Like the demon ends up doing it, so you're like, okay, like there's like a lack of catharsis for him. But I think it's almost like they didn't want him to like beat up Tony too bad. I don't know, but like that, and like I don't know. There were like little character moments in Tao Long that I did like. Well, one thing that I did like was the scene between him and Aquafina, where he's telling her about like
that was my favorite scene.
I wanted more of that. Like because it was such a powerful scene.
What I found interesting about that to me specifically was the thing like I'm gonna kill him. Like you know what I mean? Like I'm going to kill my like the resolve to kill him, because I thought that was interesting because that's like a very violent solution to the problem, which I thought was interesting because it's like, oh, this makes him he is Wenwu's son. You know what I mean? Like I think that would be an interesting sort of angle to take moving forward, and I wonder if they're going to like touch on that. That like, oh yeah, you are Wenwu's son, and Wenwu was a very like he was a piece of shit. And like, so like, are like even though like you're kind of a nice guy, like you might have that in you. You know what I mean? You might have that anger, that violence.
He was still instilled with that growing up, right? He was still abused like groomed to be a killer more than anything. And to Ethan's point too, the whole arc of Sean or Shang-Chi in the movie, right, is that he has to accept his identity from both his mother and his father, right? Like, so he has to get the power from Ta Lo and his mother. And that's something that Michelle Yeoh instills in him. Like, hey, you're your mom and you're your dad. Like, you have to accept that about yourself, right? And
that was cool.
Yeah, and it's only through, well, not him defeating his dad, but the Dark Souls boss doing it, that he inherits the 10 rings. And then when he actually is able to use both sides of the power, right? And that's why it's orange instead of blue. At least that's the way I interpret it. And it's only through that power that he was able to defeat the Dark Souls boss. Yeah. And like in a very anime-esque battle. It was certainly very, I was getting some like Dragon Ball vibes, you know, like, you know, Kamehameha or whatever. But I do think there's some character moments in there. Like, I like the part where Michelle Yeoh, or I think it was Michelle, tells like his sister, like, you need to step out of the shadows. Like, you can't keep on just being someone in the background. I thought that was good.
Yeah.
I like how they made Katie an archer, but they didn't make her like, oh my God, I'm a master archer in one day. I like how her teacher was like, nah, you're not going to be in the battle. Like, no, you're not ready, sort of thing. But then
it's so fucked up though that the master died. He just got and she watched the whole thing. She was like,
"Come on, we gotta help him." And then she's just like, "Okay," and then just watches him die and fly away. And I'm just like,
"Okay." It took a few seconds. Like, you could have helped him, but whatever.
Yeah. I agree with that, but. One thing I do want to mention about Katie though, it's not like when she's in the battle, she's like Legolas, you know what I'm saying? Like just slaying everyone left and right. She's kind of just like trying her best, and then it just so happens that she has one lucky shot that does save the day. So I like that.
You know what? Yeah. You know what? I wonder what's gonna happen when she meets Hawkeye.
Oh God! Ooh.
Oh man!
Very good point.
Wait,
competition.
Her name is Katie.
It is.
The other Hawkeye.
Yeah.
Think about that.
Think about that. I also like the scene too, where first off, her teacher is a guy named Yun Hua, legend, absolute legend in Hong Kong cinema. Was a stunt double for Bruce Lee. Has appeared in things like Drunken Master and Kung Fu Hustle. Like, absolute legend. I'm so glad he was featured in the movie. Yeah, he was the landlord. He was the landlord in Kung Fu Hustle.
Wait! But in Drunken Kung Fu,
in Drunken
Master,
he was
he the guy.
He was the villain, one of the villains. Yeah, I think.
Okay, I think the Drunken Master.
No, Drunken Master is Jackie Chan. Yeah.
No. His sensei or Sifu.
I don't. No. He was a villain in those movies. But anyway, I just want to say I really like that line where when he's teaching Katie about archery and he's just like, if you aim at nothing, like you're never going to hit anything or something like that. I was like, that was really well said. Yeah. That was really good.
I really liked that whole thing. I relate to Katie the most of anybody in the movie.
Right.
And I really did enjoy that whole resolution and that lesson imparted for sure.
Mm-hmm. Anyway, Vince, I know. Did you have anything else you want to say about the third act?
Just
it was a lot.
Conflict. Yeah.
It was a lot.
I was just like, why are these people invading? And then these Dark Souls. These Dark Souls ass monsters come out and they're just like, guys, we won't help them. One guy dies. Guys,
they were so broken. Like they were so like, every time we kill somebody, we get stronger. It's like, all right.
Yep.
That's fucked up.
What the fuck is up with that? That's really weird. And then like the dumb, just dumb weapons. Why'd they come in with tasers, dude?
Yeah.
Why did they come in with tasers? And they're not even laser guns. They just shoot electricity. I'm like, are we here to murder and kill these people? Or are we here to just capture
them? It's a PG movie. It's a PG movie.
I thought like Ta Lo's weapons looked pretty okay, but like the 10 Rings weapons, like, I'm sorry, they look like they're made of McDonald's plastic. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I know someone worked hard on that with peace and love. Like, I'm sure that went through a lot of revisions, but I'm sorry. Like, on screen, they look like they're made out of McDonald's plastic.
No, like, I really want to fight whoever the hell the prop designer is, because I'm like, these are terrible, like, prop designs. Like, the crossbows, and I'm like, is this from Star Wars? Chewbacca ass like crossbows, and I'm like, bro, come on, dude. So, I was like, you have guns. You killed presidents with guns, right? And it's like they can afford any guns, and I'm just like, any gun could be in a bow staff, right? That's happening, but they chose crossbows that shoot lightning out of it. Don't even get me started on the hook swords and how they dumb that. This man has been living. This man probably created the hook swords. His whole army had hook swords, double hook swords, and then he dumbs it down to one hook sword that looks like a police baton that's gonna like shock people. I'm like, are you kidding me? You took the lethal part out. You took the lethal part out of the whole prop, out of the whole weapon in itself. Where I was just like, this could have been great. You know what I mean? Like the hook sword and the scaffolding, they could have used those, right, to hook off of the scaffolding and like do some cool stuff. Like for example, like with like Jet from Avatar: The Last Airbender. Right, his efficiency with that and like the research that the animation team has gone through with getting that reference, I'm like, they could have used that to their advantage. Where it's like this could have been lethal, like he could have been cut up real bad, and like there's literally the whole point of having two swords is to have a great offense, length, and defense, right? But they just have one, and then don't even get me started with the post credits where like now I remember this distinctly that their bow staff has the same guard as the hook sword, and I'm like, you know how useless that is, right? That it's stuck on one plate. You can't defend properly, and that's just the practicality of like like how I find in like martial arts, where I'm just like, it's fine to just it being a stick, and then just do cool stuff with that. Like it was cool with like the dragon scales and whatnot.
Yeah,
which is also really weird because I'm just like, why didn't this like? I remember we were discussing about this, and Adam was like, why didn't this dragon just rub against rub against the Dark Souls monster? just to kill him, because I'm just like, yeah, no, wait, yeah. If these like are armor piercing dragon scales, right? Why doesn't the dragon just wrap itself around this tentacle monster?
I see.
I know we've been harping on the third act a lot, and I want to let Austin and Ethan kind of give their takes. I know me and Vince have been overall negative. I will say this: I think the creature design is all like really, really well done.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Especially some of them that are much more mythologically Chinese, that are not typical to most Western audiences. I was really happy to see that. And I do think the CG is like good, because you know how sometimes in Marvel movies, like in the third act especially, like you could tell like, all right, this could use a couple more renders, guys. I'm looking at you, Black Panther. Like you can tell when the CG just isn't ready, but I never got that feeling with this movie. Like you could tell they really took their time. I'm not sure if that's because of the pandemic and the extra time for rendering, but I never got the idea that it was like, oh guys, come on, like definitely not putting your best foot forward here. But Ethan and Austin, how'd you all feel about the third act of this movie?
Well, I think I already mostly gave my piece. I think like it was fine. It was just a lot of dumping. I think all at the end to like a lot of exposition, a lot of like suddenly like new like plots like being moved very quickly, like Katie and her archery and all this other stuff.
Sure,
yeah, I thought overall it was fine.
I also mostly gave my piece. I think there's nothing inherently wrong with the big CGI fight scene, but the execution was not done poorly, and I think it could have been a lot better had we not had two big kaiju fighting, and make it a little more personal, as we had been gotten used to throughout the whole film.
I think overall for me, and I think we're getting close to the end here, the biggest thing is that there are a lot of really good parts of this movie, and there's a lot of just things that I wish they explored more. Like I think there's so much that can be done about like just exploring, because like let's like we said before, we'll be straight up, like Wenwu abused his children, like straight up, like it was hardcore abuse. And I wish they kind of explored that a little bit more, and like Sean just being like yeah, like dad, like that was really fucked up sort of thing, or that sort of deal, but instead it kind of just goes like the dad just dies, and then like
it's fine because he's dead now. He's dead now.
It's fine because he's dead now, sort of thing. Like I wish they explored that a little bit more, and kind of just the abandonment from it all. But that's neither here nor there. A couple of things I did want to touch on before we get to kind of final reviews or anything. I know a couple people said they really liked the score and soundtrack. How'd you all feel about that in this movie?
I did not find it.
Didn't stand out.
It never stood out to me. I listened to it on the way home too.
Yeah.
It didn't really stand out to me all that much.
But that's
And
And I know
MCU.
they made
That's MCU
just
in
like
general.
the
There's no good music.
what was that MCU in general.
We
Yeah.
don't really have good music in the MCU, honestly.
It's definitely much more rare than it should be.
Yeah,
Just like with Black Panther, they made a big album.
Yeah.
It's like a concept album surrounding it with famous people.
Yeah.
And I checked out a tiny bit of that, and that was fine. I mean, I listened to the. Not only did I listen to the Black Panther soundtrack like a whole bunch when it came out. That was one of my most played albums that year.
Right.
I also listened to the Kendrick Lamar run concept album, which was so good.
Right.
And I don't know if they're ever gonna capture that magic again.
Well, the hardest part
I think
about
I'm
that,
tempted to here.
the hardest part about that is that Kendrick Lamar was the one who mixed and scored the whole album for that.
Wow.
So it's a
For
pretty,
the concept album.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, for the concept album and for the overall album, I think he was the one who overlooked like at
No,
all
that
the
was
whole thing.
No, the score is
That was
the score is
Ludwig.
someone else. Yeah, score is someone else.
Oh.
Ludwig Göransson.
Yes.
Ludwig Göransson.
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, but like the fact that like it was just solely Kendrick Lamar versus like the whole 88 Rising crew. Like I'm a big fan of the whole 88 Rising crew, which is just
Sure.
like it's a whole amalgamation of these artists and like them bringing their own taste into it, which is really cool, right? I think personally, I agree with Austin that like it wasn't eye popping because there's just so much sound. Because to me, like what's nice about what Kendrick Lamar did about the Black Panther album was like it was just sonically consistent, right? There's
Right.
just these homages to like the African drums throughout the whole album that were just like very catchy and just very like rhythmically like iconic. And like I wish Evan was here because like we went into a deep dive discussion about it, like back and forth. Where we're just like something about Black Panthers, like whole music aspect and what the themes they chose. That was like very specifically African compared to the whole amalgamation of just the whole 88 Rising crew, which is again mixing hip hop, traditional Asian, right? But like I think this is the problem with and what we struggle with today, where it's just like combining the two, right?
Sure.
One thing is that like some things I feel about is just like we separate ourselves from mixing. So what's nice with Kendrick Lamar was just like he mixed the African beats with his hip hop, right? Because like those things go together, right? They're in their roots. Whereas like here with the Shang-Chi album, it was just like the huge Chinese like orchestra with like traditional Chinese like instruments, along with the hip hop aspect that was distinctly 88 Rising. You never really got the combining of the two, so it just now sounded too different, and so it's separated from each other. So it just wasn't as distinctive enough. Especially like the theme, like I don't really recall the theme. I remember me and Evan talked about that it was the combination of Shang-Chi was his mom's theme,
Right.
which was like in the orchestra, and his dad's theme, which was together and like just came together in a big orchestra. I was like, okay, that's cool.
Yeah.
But thinking about Black Panther's thing, I was just like, this is more distinctive. This is just there's just something about how it's mixed that like just clicks. It's just more iconic, and
Yeah.
I
They
definitely think.
flew. Sorry, they flew Ludwig out to Africa, and he learned about the talking drum, which was a lot of used a lot. They would spell out T'Challa via the talking drum, and how that was used in Africa, and he made special points to make sure that he would spell out certain characters via the talking drum in the songs.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
That was a big thing. I just remember that factoid.
That's
and that
fantastic.
Might be,
No, that's
add
great.
to what you're talking about.
Mhm.
Yeah, like I didn't even like.
He also wrote the Mandalorian soundtrack.
Okay.
So Disney likes him,
And they send him to space for that one.
and they sent him to space for that. It's just-
Well, is there anything else you want to say, Vince? I'm sorry about that.
Yeah, no, I think out of the whole thing, the score was okay. I was really sad that we didn't really get any callbacks compared to like again like to Black Panther in its movie, where it's like
Sure.
you hear the talking drum like consistently throughout the movie too, and some some beats that just went hard. Oh my god, some beats just went hard. I'm sorry, but like Shang-Chi's albums did not go in as hard as like Black Panther's, because
Mm.
I was just like the only hard music that I found was just Run It by Rich Brian and Rick Ross. Oh my god, and that was in the butt scene. And we got the whole length of that. We got the whole length of that beat, but the rest of it was only like chopped up bits and pieces. I think also too like the orchestra kind of just drowns it out throughout the whole film, where it's just like there isn't like a big melody playing, which like I'm kind of sad because like you hear that's like the most iconic thing that I find in MCU movies consistently is like I remember like Captain America, you know, Captain America's theme with the military aspect with the drums and the trumpet. The same thing too with like the Avengers theme with like
Yeah, 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 yeah,
right. It's just
yeah.
like Shang-Chi felt like it didn't have that like consistently, and I was kind of sad about it because I was losing it. Like I couldn't find it anywhere. And I was just like I can't. I heard it in the album, and I was just like I don't recall this anywhere in the movie until
Right.
like maybe the end.
And I think the guy who did the score, Joel, like I love his score for Short Term 12, so I don't want to make it sound like this guy has no talent, but it definitely didn't stand out as much as I would have liked it to compared to other ones. All right, before we wrap things up, anything else you guys want to say? Any other specific things you want to talk about before we get to our final ratings and closing thoughts?
Nothing specific, I think. Let's wrap this
Nope.
sucker up, Adam. Let's
All
do
right.
it.
All right. Closing thoughts
Put 'em
and
full.
final ratings. We're going to start with you, Vince. Tell the people what you think.
I thought Shang-Chi was just like I'm satisfied, right?
Uh-huh.
I'm not hyping it up, nor am I just like it's a bad movie. Like no, like it's a pretty decent movie where it's just like it just came up with like a lot of shortcomings.
Hmm.
Um, we discussed this in the past where it's just like I think that's just how it is with like establishment of like MCU characters in the first iteration of movies where it's just like it's all about the world building, right? It's just like of course you're gonna get like all these inconsistencies, but at the same time it's like it's all about the world building and establishing your character first before deepening into why you love that character,
Hmm.
right? So it's just like it wasn't a great movie in my opinion. It wasn't a bad movie. It was just like it was okay. For me, it was like a 5 out of 10
Okay.
for it because I
Wow.
was just like,
Damn.
choreo was okay. Again, if this is the best of the MCU, like I want to push that more because as a kung fu film, I thought it was just like okay to mediocre because I was
Right.
just like, I was like, sure, it's not like Yen Wu Ping, you know what I mean?
Sure. Sure.
Well, I like to like the full extent, but I was just like, it's decent enough, But yeah, the movie's okay. Just as like a standard viewer, like I have no idea what's going on in the MC universe. So like
Sure.
as a
Sure.
standalone, would I watch it again? No. Did I enjoy my time? Yeah.
Okay. That's fair. How about you, Ethan?
I think that it's so difficult to kind of rate MCU movies on their own because they tend to be so interconnected and they tend to they love to build over multiple movies where it's like I feel like the peak of Shang-Chi and Katie isn't going to be for another few movies, I feel.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
Absolutely.
it's kind of difficult to these intro movies. I feel like are always a bit of a dud because they're like it's such a slow process for them where they like to take their time. But I
Right.
think as far as intro movies go, I think they've got it down to a T at this point. Like they know
Mhm.
how to bring a new character in, and I
Mhm.
think I didn't feel like my time was wasted when I watched this movie. I thought it was interesting. I would like to see where it goes. So yeah, I think I will give it a 7 out of 10.
Where would you say it ranks for you in like terms of the MCU, like higher, mid tier sort of thing?
Oh,
I
it's
don't need like an exact placement, just more like
I
ballpark.
would say it's above the middle. I would
Okay.
say it's
Okay.
not. It's not one of the worst ones where I'm like, fucking, I don't know, Thor 2 or something, but like, or fucking
Atom
Iron
alarm.
Man 3. But like,
Right.
but it wasn't like it didn't like I wasn't like, wow, that was amazing. But yeah,
Right.
I enjoyed it.
Okay. All right, Austin. How about you, man?
So this was, as we get into this new phase,
Right.
it was a more positive reaction from me than Black Widow.
Mm-hmm.
I think there were a lot of good things about this movie. The action set pieces were almost always a great time. The humor landed for me probably almost universally. I can't think of something when I wasn't feeling what they were trying to make me feel. Like that worked as well.
Mm.
I understand the problems with the third act. I was never bored
Right.
during the whole thing. It was a fairly long movie.
Yeah.
But I didn't feel it.
Right.
Didn't really feel it. I gave this movie a 3.5 out of 5.
Mhm.
Okay.
And you'll see that reflected on my letterbox. It was
Sure.
it was good. It was a positive experience overall, but I wasn't wowed per se.
Right.
There were just cool things about it, and not enough negative happened for me to dislike it outright. And it was certainly, I was not disappointed. My expectations were next to none. I didn't know what to expect going in, and I wasn't disappointed. I had a good time with it. I just know that to reach the heights that the previous movies have reached, it's going to take some doing. And you're right, Ethan is right, that these peaks probably won't come very soon.
Right.
It will be very interesting to look back once we get all of these intro movies done,
Mm-hmm.
to compare them to the intro movies of yore.
Right.
I wonder how they measure up. This was better. This is probably better than Ant-Man. You know, maybe just for me,
Right.
because I think Ant-Man was fun, but it was it was okay.
Sure.
It's Ant-Man.
But this was a little more than
A lot.
okay.
I'm not gonna lie. I thought it was hilarious. But keep going. Sorry.
This is a little more than okay. This was this had a little bit more going on.
Mm.
So this is probably a movie that's gonna be defined by how well it ages.
Right.
But 3.5 out of 5 for me.
Okay. And what would you say for you ranks in MCU ballpark?
Above or below?
Definitely in the middle.
Middle?
Definitely in the middle. Whether that is upper, I'm trying to think of what else is upper middle. I think I'm comfortable putting it in the middle.
Okay.
Maybe not even upper.
Okay.
I'm trying to think of what would be upper middle. I haven't seen all of them, believe it or not.
Oh, okay.
I haven't seen Thor 2, but I heard it's bad. I haven't seen Iron Man 3, but I know the basic gist of it.
Right.
I haven't seen Iron Man 2. So I don't know for sure.
Okay.
So maybe some of the more bit movies I might not know. I saw Thor 3.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like I'm very comfortable placing this in the middle. It was not bad.
Mm.
It was not the greatest the MCU has ever been.
Okay. Fair. Well, I think this movie is a very good movie, not great sort of thing. Like it had the potential for greatness, but I do think it's a very, very good movie. We've talked a lot about how good the action was. We've talked a lot about how good the character work was, how everyone goes through an arc. And we've talked a lot about how there's a lot of really good themes in here, not only for the movie itself, but also how it ties into the larger MCU and what it means for the MCU moving forward, having this mystical side kind of coming in. I think the cinematography was there as well. You can tell they really stepped it up when it came to the choreography, like we said before. So overall, I would say I really enjoyed this movie. I think that there was a lot of missed opportunities, like I was saying before. I know I'm in the minority when I say I don't like the big CGI third act fights, but I know for me, especially given the director's pedigree, I really wish there's a bit more quiet moments where we could talk about a lot of those themes and get more deeper into the character, because I think that's what he does best. Like in Short Term 12, which is also another film about abuse, that's where that movie truly shines. And I really wish that he was able to flex that a little bit more, even though, again, it's not like the movie is bad or anything like that. So overall, I really liked it. I give it a full price. And I'd be remiss to say that, I'm obviously biased as an Asian American, but this was really, really cool to see. There's been a lot of comparisons made to Black Panther for good reason, both from a cultural standpoint, but also even from a plot standpoint, like we pointed out before. I really want to applaud Marvel for going out there. A lot of the dialogue in the movie isn't even in English. It's in Mandarin. That takes a lot of balls to do today,
Sure.
especially in a blockbuster. There's a lot of foreignness in it. You could tell the Hong Kong and Chinese influences in it. I'm so glad that Tony Leung has been introduced to an entire new generation of people, just to the West in general. And I hope that he gets a lot more recognition and kind of people see his films and how talented he truly is. And the rest of Hong Kong and Chinese cinema is. That's something I'm really, really happy about. And I do think the movie does, while it doesn't represent all of Asia, because it's kind of impossible to do given how large it is, I do think that there are a lot of really small touches that Vince and I have talked about a little bit that really help talk about the Asian American experience, whether it be the conflicts that you have with your family, or even just small things like paying respects to your ancestors, taking off your shoes before you get into the house, things like that. I really do want to applaud Marvel for doing that. I know they did it because they like money. I'm not like someone that thinks that they're actually trying to change the world or anything like that, but it is a step in the right direction regardless. Like it is something that's really nice to see, and I'm very, very eager and excited to see not only the future of the MCU but more movies like this that can kind of explore it and see more of that inclusion diversity on screen, just because it's how things should be more than anything. So I'm really excited about that, and I again want to applaud Marvel for that. Okay, so we're gonna wrap it up here. Before we go, shout outs. Vince, you want to give any shout outs? Where do you want to say to the people? How can they follow you?
You can follow me on VLabs on any platform, Twitch, Instagram, and Twitter, for all your animation. I am open for jobs, by the way, if anyone's curious.
Okay.
I am open to work. I work in animation, but I am free right now, so please hire me.
Any shout outs you want to give? Anything?
No.
Okay. All right.
Shout outs to Tony Leung. Go watch Grandmaster. Greatest, one of my favorite, and like what I feel like is the greatest kung fu movies of all time. But Adam disagrees with that, but he can go.
I acknowledge my faults when it comes to watching that film. Anyway, Ethan, any shout outs you want to give? Where do you want to say to the people? How can they follow you?
Don't fucking follow me, all right? I don't fucking need you. I don't want to see you. I don't want fucking any of you fucking people. Stay away from me. I'm sick of you fucking people. I'm sick of this. I'm out of here. Shout outs to the What If series on Disney Plus. It's pretty good.
It's great.
It's
so far, yeah.
And yeah, let's see where phase 4. I don't know what fucking phase is.
Yeah,
phase
4.
Phase 4 goes.
Is it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Awesome. All right, Austin, how about you? Any shout outs you want to give? Or do you want to say to the people? How can they follow you?
I don't want them to follow me. I'm not in a field that requires such things.
Wait, not even on Letterboxd? You don't want them to follow you on Letterboxd? Okay.
Follow me
we'll
on
okay.
Brewmaster.
All right.
Shout outs to Morris. Shout outs to Sir Ben. What's his name? Ben Kingsley.
Yeah, Kingsley, correct.
Ben Kingsley, who we didn't talk about, but I thought was a great addition to the movie.
He was pretty funny.
He was very funny. Yeah. Thanks for having me, guys.
That's great.
Of course. Listen, Austin, you're a veteran of the podcast. Even if
That's right.
during the longest video review that we've ever done, you fell asleep, that doesn't matter because you were still there.
That's
important.
He was there.
He was there.
It takes commitment to fall asleep in the podcast.
Exactly. Among friends. Among friends.
There was like 80 people in there. It felt easier than it was like this.
It was an 80, but okay.
On 75.
Of course, I want to give a shout out to everyone who's listening and or watching this video review. Always appreciated. Always lots of love. Hope everyone is doing okay considering everything going on in the world. Of course, want to give a shout out to all the creators and people who not only put work into this film, because trust me, putting on a movie like this takes a ton of people and not just one or two. Also want to give a big shout out to the creators of Shang-Chi and all these characters. I think, unfortunately, we live in a world where the creators of these characters are often not recognized. We talk a lot about Stan Lee, but there's a whole bunch of other people.
It's funny that you mentioned that with the Steve Ditko thing going on.
Yeah, no, I saw that earlier. That's why it's like on my mind. So I want to give a big shout out to them, right? It's these creative people who are kind of creating the modern mythologies that we all know and love today. So big shout out to them. And of course, if you want to follow me, you can follow me on Twitter at Adam_Bomb, bomb with 2 M's. And of course, follow the podcast. Stay tuned. We're going to be doing more of these. And I'm not sure what the next review will be. We'll figure that out.
Oh, no.
But I'm very, very excited for the future. And I'm always grateful for everyone who does watch. But until then, take care of yourselves. Peace.